says, rummaging through one of his folders while giving the president an apologetic smile. I didn't think it was worth mentioning, but now that it's come up. He pulls a piece of paper out and I snatch it out of his hand before Cohen can react. She's too busy glaring at him, anyway. You knew of this and didn't think it was worth mentioning. You got married and didn't tell me. I hiss at Haymitch at the same time, staring at the document I'm now holding. As far as I can tell, it's the real deal. That's when I notice the date. Now all heads turn to me at my disbelieving shriek. You got married on my victory tour and didn't tell me. What is wrong with you? Before anyone can say anything else, Cohen declares the meeting over and storms out, Plutarch and Bob's hurrying after her. I grab Haymitch by the arm and drag him out as well. We have to talk, and I'm pretty sure at least Command is bugged. It makes her a more obvious pressure point, Haymitch says before I can even ask. She knows too much. And the capital doesn't take kindly to traitors. Not to mention I might have a better haggling position here now. Letting an escort die is one thing, but a victor's wife. He shakes his head and pulls his arm from my grasp, not gently. We don't have time to discuss this, kid. I have to get Plutarch to do something. He starts walking away but then turns back. And you just keep out of it until I tell you otherwise. Cohen hates you more than she hates me. I only nod, staying rooted to the spot and sending a prayer to whatever there might be. Underscore 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 underscore. Yeah, I went there, my op is married, sue me. They're so effing canon anyway, like okay, just, okay. Also in this scenario Effie is like neck deep in the rebellion cause Prim trust her more than Katniss ever did. Foolish baby girl Katniss, you are so blind, my dear. I've been pacing in the hallway outside Command for what feels like forever. Haymitch told me to stay out of it all and I trust him, have to trust him on this, because there is nothing else I can do. But time has ticked past and I have no news of him succeeding, no hint of any rescue mission, no nothing. All I have is Rory, who's leaning against the wall and watching me silently, not offering any meaningless words of reassurance that it'll be alright. Just the quiet knowledge that he'll be there when it won't. It's not until Gale, Olive, and Finnick walk up the corridor that I know it's too late. They've come to see the inevitable. Finnick is deathly pale and, I can recognize it only because I've seen it before, on the verge of a panic attack. Olive looks as lost as she did when I last saw her, twisting a piece of rope between her shaking hands, having taken up Finnick's way of soothing himself. Gale has a hand laid on her shoulder as casually as possibly, but it looks almost as if he needs to steer her or thinks she's about to bolt. Rory hugs me fiercely before I step into the room he has no access to. The atmosphere here is no better. Cohen has her arms crossed, expression unwavering as she surveys the room. Plutarch looks resigned and guilt-ridden, Fulvia as if she's about to throw up or pass out. Celeste is sitting slightly apart from them, silent tears running down her face. Haymitch is surrounded by the remaining victors, even Kashmir, who isn't particularly close to anyone but Finnick. Desperate times pull us together, I guess. I push into their middle and unceremoniously climb onto Haymitch's lap, curling up like a small child. As his shaking arms then circle me, I'm not entirely sure who's offering comfort to whom. All we can do now is helplessly watch as the screen flickers to life. It doesn't take long and eerie silence falls over the room. All I want to do is to bury my face against Haymitch's shoulder, or better yet, run from the room. Instead, I force myself to remain fixed on the screen, watching without so much as blinking. You owe her that much, I remind myself. I don't understand right away when they bring out the man, beaten, bruised, and frightened. His hair is covered in blood and grime, but I can still make out the light blue of it, suddenly knowing it will match his eyes exactly when he lifts his gaze. Emmanuel, I say softly. The kind man who rescued me from Octavius Templis Mithras over-eager clutches. Effie's cousin. It takes me another few seconds to realize why the Capitol's list was only by surnames, and why they allowed us to get it in the first place. They're fucking with us. Chaff puts my thoughts into words. They're just trying to fuck with our heads. Trying and succeeding. I turn away from the screen, instead looking to my mentor, a sense of sorrow for Emmanuel barely making a dent in my overwhelming sense of relief. I'd feel guilty for it if I didn't see it so clearly mirrored on Haymitch's face. Minutes later, we're all ushered out of command and told to return to our schedules. Mine has combat training next, which I take to mean I'll ignore the schedule from now on. Gail has weaponry with BT, Olive has no schedule and thus no hunting time until she gets the medics all clear, and Rory and I are not allowed into the woods alone. And there is no way I'm going to actual combat training. It has the potential to trigger me on the best of days, and this is really not one of them. So instead, I sidle off to the hospital with Olive and Finnick. We sit around and talk for a few hours until Gail comes and finds us to inform us we're wanted in command. What's going on? I ask as we walk. Did something happen? Gail shrugs, also looking worried. I think Cressida just wants to show us the 12 Prupo, but I'm not sure. People have crowded into command, but they've saved seats for me and Olive. The screens are already up on the table, showing the regular capital feed. What's going on? Aren't we seeing the 12 Prupo? I ask. Oh, no, says Plutarch. I mean, possibly. I don't know exactly what footage BT plans to use. BT thinks he's found a way to break into the feed nationwide, says Haymitch. So that our Prupo will air in the capital, too. He's down working on it in special defense now. There's live programming tonight. Snow's making an appearance or something. I think it's starting. The capital seal appears, underscored by the anthem. Then I'm staring directly into President Snow's snake eyes as he greets the nation. He seems barricaded behind his podium, but the white rose in his lapel is in full view. The camera pulls back and I think we all expect to see Katniss, so it's a shock when it isn't her. Panic rises in my chest at the thought of why they might have stopped using her, but I firmly push it down for now. Who is that? Someone asks, and I realize most people here won't recognize Effie without her wigs and makeup. And that's without even mentioning the state she's in. They've clearly made an attempt to clean her up, but it was either last minute or very half-hearted. She looks about ready to faint from sheer exhaustion. There's a nasty, half-healed cut on her cheek, and the way she holds her left arm makes me think her shoulder might be dislocated. I can barely even bring myself to acknowledge the clearly finger-shaped bruises on her throat, but her slightly hoarse voice makes them impossible to ignore. I grab Haymitch's hand, needing some sort of anchor. Snow says some nonsense about traitors and the capital's generosity and ceasefires, then prompts Effie into some clearly pre-written statement. Bam! Without warning, I'm suddenly on television, standing in the rubble of my home district. Plutarch jumps to his feet. He did it. BT broke in. Then Effie's back on screen, her lips moving soundlessly, eyes fixed to the side of the stage. She must have seen me on the monitor. She's going to do something stupid, Haymitch says next to me. She figured out she's Liv. He's not talking to me as much as the screen now. Oh God, don't. Sweetheart, don't. I'm still trying to follow his reasoning when a clip of Finnick talking about Thresh replaces Effie. And then the whole thing breaks down into a broadcast battle, as the Capital Tech Masters try to fend off BT's attack. But they are unprepared, and BT, apparently anticipating he would not hold on to control, has an arsenal of 5 to 10 second clips to work with. We watch the official presentation deteriorate as it's peppered with choice shots from the Prupo. Plutarch's in spasms of delight and most everybody is cheering BT on, but all I can think of is what this means for Effie and where the hell they have my sister. The capital seals back up, accompanied by a flat audio tone. This lasts about 20 seconds before Snow and Effie return. The set is in turmoil. We're hearing frantic exchanges from their booth. Snow plows forward, saying that clearly the rebels are now attempting to disrupt the dissemination of information they find incriminating, but both truth and justice will reign. The full broadcast will resume when security has been reinstated. He asks Effie if, given tonight's demonstration, she has any parting thoughts for Primrose Everdeen. Indeed I do, she says so pleasantly you'd think she was chatting to a friend over tea and biscuits. That's when I know Haymitch is right and she's going to do something reckless. Effie gives the president her brightest, fakest escort smile and then looks directly into the camera. They are going to bomb 13. Off camera, Snow orders, end it, BT throws the whole thing into chaos by flashing a still shot of me standing in front of the hospital at 3-second intervals. But between the images, we are privy to the real-life action being played out on the set. Effie's attempt to continue speaking. The camera knocked down to record the white-tiled floor. The scuffle of boots. The impact of the blow that's inseparable from Effie's cry of pain. And her blood as it splatters the tiles. The scream that falls from my lips gets lost in the uproar of the room. Everyone's shouting over each other, discussing what we just heard, questions and demands ringing out. No one seems concerned with what's happening to Effie. Gale pulls me into his arms, and it's only then that I realize I have gotten to my feet at some point and haven't stopped screaming. I bury my face against his chest and sob. Then Haymitch's voice cuts through the racket. Shut up. Why are you still talking? We're about to be attacked. Here. In 13. How would she have that information? Why should we trust her? How do you know? Haymitch gives a growl of frustration. They are beating her bloody while we speak. What more do you need? Prim, Finnick, someone help me out here. I try to speak but Finn beats me to it. Haymitch is right. I don't know where Effie got the information. Or if it's even true. But she believes it is. And there, he leaves the sentence hanging, unable to finish it. You don't know her, Haymitch says to Coin. We do. Get your people ready. The president doesn't seem alarmed, only somewhat perplexed, by this turn in events. She mulls over the words, tapping one finger lightly on the rim of the control board in front of her. When she speaks, she addresses Haymitch in an even voice. Of course, we have prepared for such a scenario. Although we have decades of support for the assumption that further direct attacks on 13 would be counterproductive to the capital's cause. Nuclear missiles would release radiation into the atmosphere, with incalculable environmental results. Even routine bombing could badly damage our military compound, which we know they hope to regain. And, of course, they invite a counterstrike. It is conceivable that, given our current alliance with the rebels, those would be viewed as acceptable risks. You think so, says Haymitch. It's a shade too sincere, but the subtleties of irony are often wasted in 13. I do. At any rate, we're overdue for a level 5 security drill, says Coin. Let's proceed with the lockdown. She begins to type rapidly on her keyboard, authorizing her decision. The moment she raises her head, it begins. A wordless, eardrum-piercing, fear-inducing siren starts shrieking, and it seems to me the best way to cause a panic, but here in 13 such things just don't happen. We leave command, Bob's leading the way. Streams of people are converging to form a river that flows only downward. No one shrieks or tries to push ahead. Even the children don't resist. I'm looking for Mum and Rory, for Livia and Estelle, but I can't spot anyone. But there's no way they could miss the sirens. Gale leaves my side when he sees Posey a bit ahead of us, biting back tears as she walks with her teacher and a class of tiny children. I'm down a whole flight of stairs before I remember Buttercup. I turn around and make my way back. It's slow going against the tide of people going the other way, but if I squeeze against the rail it's possible. I only notice Olive's behind me when I'm in the corridor again. There's more room, now, as almost everyone has made it to the staircase. Where are we going? She asks, suddenly sounding alive again. Excited. I left Finn to distract Boggs, no one's coming for us. I'm getting my cat, I admit, breaking into a run. She's stunned, for a second, then laughs and follows me. You're a fucking weirdo, Everdeen. I like it. I burst into our compartment to find Buttercup pacing the room and howling. I kneel down and scoop him up, burying my face in his fur. Oh, you good boy, you came back to protect us. Not to rush you or anything, Olive says, stuffing a few things indiscriminately into my sister's old game bag. But bombs and stuff. Let's go, yeah. 1 second, I say, handing her our plant book to add to the bag and grabbing Mum and Dad's wedding picture as well as Amber's portrait. I look around the room. Okay, now. We race back down the stairs, and when we're almost there I hear Haymitch shouting, even though I can't make out what. We're coming. I scream, just in case. At the same time, Olive shouts, hold the door. Haymitch has his shoulder wedged into the last open space of the door, yelling for them to open it again. Once they do, he turns to yelling at me and Olive for being absolute fucking idiots instead. For a few blissful seconds, we forget the gravity of the situation and break out in almost hysterical laughter. Only when the bunker door closes behind us with a terribly final clunk does reality sink back in. We wave our schedules in front of a scanner so that we're accounted for before walking further into the bunker. No doubt the information's going to some computer somewhere to make sure no one's gone astray. The place seems unable to decide if it's natural or man-made. Certain areas of the walls are stone, while steel beams and concrete heavily reinforce others. Sleeping bunks are hewn right into the rock walls. There's a kitchen, bathrooms, a first aid station. This place was designed for an extended stay. White signs with letters or numbers are placed at intervals around the cavern. Haymitch tells us we have to head to the area that matches our assigned quarters, E in our case, and Olive and I head over. Plutarch strolls up when we're halfway there. "Ah, here you are," he says. Recent events have had little effect on Plutarch's mood. He still has a happy glow from BT's success on the airtime assault. Eyes on the forest, not on the trees. Not on FE's punishment or 13's imminent blasting. Prim, obviously this is a bad moment for you, but you need to be aware that others will be watching you. What? I say. The other people in the bunker, they'll be taking their cue on how to react from you. If you're calm and brave, others will try to be as well. If you panic, it could spread like wildfire, explains Plutarch. I just stare at him. Fire is catching, so to speak, he continues, as if I'm being slow on the uptake. Right, I say slowly, trying to keep in my annoyance. I'll be sure to keep that in mind. Wonderful. I've got to get back to Coin before lockdown. You keep up the good work, he says, and then heads off. This is it, I guess, Olive says suddenly. Our space consists of a 12 by 12 foot square of stone floor delineated by painted lines. Carved into the wall are 2 bunks, I guess I'll share with my mother, and a ground level cube space for storage. A piece of white paper, coated in clear plastic, reads bunker protocol. On arrival, Olive reads out. Make sure all members of your compartment are accounted for. I look around for my mother. It takes me a bit to find her. She's at the supply station, a deep room set off by a counter. People wait behind it, but there's not a lot of activity there anymore. I guess she can't have gotten here much before us, she probably had to help relocate patients first. I go over to her and take one of the packs from her. Back at the bunk, we set up everything as per instructions, not that there is really a lot to do. Olive climbs onto one of the bunks and throws an arm across her face, blocking out the lights. I settle Buttercup on the other bunk, draping him in a blanket so only his face sticks out. That's how he likes to be when there's thunder. It'll get really loud and scary, I tell him. But we'll be okay, I promise. The faint sound of the sirens cuts off sharply. Coin's voice comes over the district audio system, thanking us all for an exemplary evacuation of the upper levels. She stresses that this is not a drill. That's when the first bomb hits. There's an initial sense of impact followed by an explosion that resonates in my innermost parts, the lining of my intestines, the marrow of my bones, the roots of my all going to die, I think. My eyes turn upward, expecting to see giant cracks race across the ceiling, massive chunks of stone raining down on us, but the bunker itself gives only a slight shudder. The lights go out and I experience the disorientation of total darkness. Speechless human sounds, spontaneous shrieks, ragged breaths, baby whimpers, one musical bit of insane laughter, dance around in the charged air. Then there's a hum of a generator, and a dim wavering glow replaces the stark lighting that is the norm in 13. It's closer to what we had in our homes in 12, when the candles and fire burned low on a winter's night. Probably a bunker missile. We learned about them during the orientation for new citizens. They are designed to penetrate deep in the ground before they go off. Because there's no point in bombing 13 on the surface anymore. I don't even want to think about the possibility of them being nuclear, crooning to Buttercup as much as myself now. It's all right, baby, it's all right. We'll be okay down here. We're so far down, I'm sure we're safe, says my mother wanly. She's sitting close to me, a hand resting lightly on my arm, shaking ever so slightly. It was a close call, though. Thank goodness Effie had the wherewithal to warn us. I turned from Buttercup to Mum, unsure how to answer that. I don't think she's ever called Effie by her name before, it was always your escort. I only give her a small smile in lieu of replying. Coin's voice, perhaps a shade grimmer, fills the bunker, the volume level flickering with the lights. Apparently, Effie Trinket's information was sound and we owe her a great debt of gratitude. Sensors indicate the first missile was not nuclear, but very powerful. We expect more will follow. For the duration of the attack, citizens are to stay in their assigned areas unless otherwise notified. A soldier alerts my mother that she's needed in the first aid station. She's reluctant to leave me, even though she'll only be 30 yards away. I kiss her cheek and send her on her way. I'll be fine. I have Buttercup and Olive. What's gonna get past them? We're given clearance in small groups to use the bathroom and brush our teeth, although showering has been cancelled for the day. Rory casually leaves his group and slips over to mine on our way back. I hope you don't mind, he says with a cheeky grin, lacing our fingers together. I thought I'd see how you're doing. Plus, it's so cold in here, Ma was going to make me sleep in a bunk with Vic for warmth. Let him kick Gale all night instead. I laugh, which I really needed right now. Then I raise an eyebrow at Rory. So you thought I'd let you crash with me? Hoped, he says, and that one word sends butterflies throughout my whole body. Olive ruins the mood by gagging in an exaggerated fashion. You two disgust me. But hand over the extra blanket and we're cool. I let go of Rory's hand to give Olive a shove, but I give her the blanket anyways. It really is uncomfortably chilly here. I curl up with Rory and Buttercup, close my eyes, and do my best not to think about anything but Rory's warm breath on the back of my neck. We receive next to no information about what is happening. Our screens never come on, and we get only brief audio updates from Coin about the nature of the bombs. Certainly, the war is still being waged, but as to its status, we're in the dark. Inside the bunker, cooperation is the order of the day. We adhere to a strict schedule for meals and bathing, exercise and sleep. Small periods of socialization are granted to alleviate the tedium. Our space becomes very popular because both children and adults have a fascination with Buttercup. He attains celebrity status with his evening game of Crazy Cat. Katniss accidentally created the game a few winters ago and I've loved it ever since. It's so wonderful to watch Buttercup jump and turn, taking his time to guess where the light will go next, and the people here in 13 agree that he's just delightful. I'm even issued a special set of batteries, an enormous waste, to be used for the game. Olive can't stand having so many people crowding around our space and sidles off to Phoenix pretty soon. That's good in my opinion, though, as they help keep each other put together. They're so intent on the other not falling apart, they forget about their own issues for a bit. After Olive left, Vic and Posey immediately lay claim to her bunk, as that will get them closest to everyone's favorite pastime. No one says anything about it. I guess it's because they're all just as starved for entertainment as the Hawthorne kids. We're in the bunker for a full 3 days until Coin finally announces we can leave the bunker. Our old quarters have been destroyed by the bombings. Everyone must follow exact directions to their new compartments. We clean our spaces, as directed, and file obediently toward the door. Boggs heads me off when I get in line, collecting Olive, Finnick, and Gale along the way. People move aside to let us by. Out the door, up the stairs, down the hall to one of those multidirectional elevators, and finally we arrive at Special Defense. Nothing along our route has been damaged, but we are still very deep. Boggs ushers us into a room virtually identical to Command. Coin, Plutarch, Haymitch, Cressida, and everybody else around the table looks exhausted. Someone has finally broken out the coffee, although I'm sure it's viewed only as an emergency stimulant, and Plutarch has both hands wrapped tightly around his cup as if at any moment it might be taken away. There's no small talk. We need all 4 of you suited up and above ground, says the President. You have 2 hours to get footage showing the damage from the bombing, establish that 13's military unit remains not only functional but dominant, and, most important, that the Mockingjay is still alive. Any questions? Is there a rescue mission? I ask, taking Coin as my example and not bothering with any preamble. Effie and the others. Are you finally getting them? No, she says, as if that's all there is to be said. I straighten my back and stare right at her. Fine. Then I'm not doing your shoot. Plutarch leans forward, still clutching his cup. Primrose, you need to be seen. If not, that could severely demoralize the rebels. I don't care, I say calmly. The ex-game maker frowns, then says I have people on the inside. But it would be very costly. I cut him off before he can say anything else. I don't care. I don't think you quite understand. Plutarch presses covers will be blown. People will die. Everything inside of me is screaming that I can't damn who knows how many people for a small chance to get a few people back. But I focus on the cold, steel core of my mind and repeat myself again, dropping every word into the room with a calm that surprises even myself. I don't care. Plutarch looks around the room for someone to help him, but my three comrades won't budge either. Haymitch gives me a small nod, and that's enough. I'm right, no matter how horrible I sound. Or maybe I'm wrong, but none of us care. I give the room at large a pleasant smile. So, agreed. We're getting them back. This is followed by an intense discussion that ends with Coin throwing up her hands in exasperation. We'll do it. Then she switches back to her calm, collected persona. We can spin this to our advantage. Breaching Snow's highest security prison, getting hostages of value back. We can work with that. But you, she levels a glare at me that makes me shrink into my seat. Get in front of a camera right this instant. Boggs gestures for one of his soldiers to go with me, he himself staying behind to talk strategy. The soldier gives me a small smile and I recognize him as Tinko, one of the soldiers that was with us in 11. In my new remake room in Special Defense, my prep team slaps me into my Mockingjay suit, arranges my hair, and applies minimal makeup. In 10 minutes, the cast and crew of the next propo are making the circuitous trek to the outside. After climbing a final ladder, Tinko hits a lever that opens a trapdoor. Fresh air rushes in. I take big gulps and for the first time allow myself to feel how much I hated the bunker. We emerge into the woods, and my hands run through the leaves overhead. Debris begins to litter the forest floor. We come to our first crater, 30 yards wide and I can't tell how deep. Very. Tinko says anyone on the first 10 levels would likely have been killed. We skirt the pit and continue on. How much time did Effie's warning buy us? I ask. He considers this, then apparently decides there's no harm in answering. About 10 minutes before our own systems would have detected the missiles. But even a few seconds can mean everything in such a situation. We owe her a great debt. I only nod to that. Hopeful it's enough for them to actually get her back alive. Get everyone back alive. As we approach what used to be the grand entrance, Messala points out something and the whole party slows down. I don't know what the problem is at first and then I see the ground strewn with fresh blue roses. Don't touch them. I yell. They're for me. The sickeningly sweet smell hits my nose, and my heart begins to hammer against my chest. So I didn't imagine it. The rose on my dresser. Before me lies Snow's second delivery. Long-stemmed blue beauties, the very flowers that decorated the set where I performed my post-victory interview. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it. The decor had matched my eyes, my dress and shoes, but looking back, I can tell it was a way for Snow to lay the capital's claim to me. I explain to the others as best I can, gagging at the stench of the flowers. Upon inspection, they appear to be harmless, if genetically enhanced, flowers. 24 roses. Slightly wilted. Most likely dropped after the last bombing. A crew in special suits collects them and carts them away. I feel certain they will find nothing extraordinary in them, though. Snow knows exactly what he's doing to me. He's only messing with my head. I force myself to forget about the roses, about Snow, about the strategy meeting taking place at this very moment. About the fact that the fate of my sister and friends will be decided today. So, what exactly do you need from me again? I ask. Just a few quick lines that show you're alive and still fighting, says Cressida. I nod and take my position, drawing in a few deep breaths as I stare into the red light of the camera. I try my best to look more confident than I feel. Chin up, back straight, smile on. Here in 13, we've just gotten through the Capitol bombing, I announced to the camera. As we all know, Snow's quite good at destroying things. But what he didn't count on is that we are good at surviving. Which is why 13 is alive and well, and so am I. I glance at Cressida and she nods, encouraging me to keep going. What I want the people of Panem to realize is that, no matter who you are, you can help us win this fight. There's people of all districts here in 13 and the warning of what was going to happen came straight from the capital. The people there aren't our enemies, Snow and his regime are. We demand freedom, he answers with violence. But it's going to take a lot more than some bombs to shake us, and nothing will make us give up. United we stand, united we fight, united we win. Cut, Cressida calls out, and I stand at ease, looking at her expectantly. Any good, do you think? She gives me an incredulous look and then a bright smile. Absolutely perfect, Prim. I thank her quietly. Finnick and Olive come walking up to us, or, in the latter's case, sullenly stomping. Finn turns to the director. Where to shoot something as well? Where do you want me? What's wrong? I ask Olive. She sighs and rolls her eyes. They already dispatched the rescue team. Volunteer only. And you know what they said. I couldn't go. I couldn't even go, Prim. Because I'm apparently mentally unstable and a risk to everyone's safety. She says this in a mocking, high-pitched voice while making accounts. Bunch of twits. Wouldn't let Finn go either, though that I understand, I guess. They already left. I ask. Then the word volunteer seeps into my brain. I look around to see if anyone else followed her. No such look. My hands are instantly sweaty. Where's Gale? Olive looks more annoyed than worried. Oh, he was allowed to go. I chew on my lower lip, watching as Olive shoots a short clip as well. So now what? We just wait. And try to distract them, Haymitch says. There was even talk of sending you into a district to keep Snow's eyes elsewhere. I nod at that. Yes, I'll do it. When can we leave? I already vetoed the idea, my mentor tells me. I frown at him, confused. What? Why? I can do it, I'm ready. I'll be okay. I want to help. Haymitch sighs heavily. I know you do, kid. I'm not doubting you. He warily runs his hands through his hair. It's not that. Boggs is leading the rescue. Gale's on the team, so's Kashmir. Finnick and Olive won't get clearance to leave 13, I definitely won't. Who does that leave to come with you? Protect you. You don't trust Coin, I state quietly. It really isn't a question. He won't let me make a move that could risk my safety without at least having some kind of protection we can rely on. Especially not when, at the same time, so many of the others are at risk. I give a small smile. I don't, either. Good, he replies simply. We stand in silence for a bit, watching the others. Then, I speak again. So what can we do? To distract them. What we really need is something so riveting that even President Snow won't be able to tear himself away. Got anything like that? Asks Haymitch. I might have something like that. I almost jump out of my skin, not having noticed Finnick coming up to us. Haymitch and I both turn towards him, my mentor with raised eyebrows. Oh. You do? Finnick nods, pale yet determined. Then he walks over to Plutarch without another word. Haymitch swears under his breath and follows the younger Victor. I stay behind, perplexed. Why is Haymitch so upset? Whatever Finnick can say, it must help us, surely. The capital adores him, all eyes will remain glued to him. As Finnick moves to take a seat before the camera, Haymitch tells him, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. If it will help her. Finnick balls up his rope in his hand. I'm ready. A split second before he starts talking, I realize what he will speak about. President Snow used to sell me my body. That is, Finnick begins in a flat, removed tone. I wasn't the only one. If a victor is considered desirable, the president gives them as a reward or allows people to buy them for an exorbitant amount of money. If you refuse, he kills someone you love. So you do it. He stops for a few seconds, taking in a deep breath. I wasn't the only one, but I was the most popular, he says. And perhaps the most defenseless, because the people I loved were so defenseless. To make themselves feel better, my patrons would make presents of money or jewelry, but I found a much more valuable form of payment. Another pause, purely for effect this time. Secrets. And this is where you're going to want to stay tuned, President Snow, because so very many of them were about you. But let's begin with some of the others. Finnick begins to weave a tapestry so rich in detail that you can't doubt its authenticity. Tales of strange sexual appetites, betrayals of the heart, bottomless greed, and bloody power plays. Drunken secrets whispered over damp pillowcases in the dead of night. Finnick was someone bought and sold. A district slave. A handsome one, certainly, but in reality, harmless. Who would he tell? And who would believe him if he did? But some secrets are too delicious not to share. I don't know all the people Finnick names, all seem to be prominent capital citizens, but I know, from listening to the chatter of my prep team, the attention the most mild slip in judgment can draw. If a bad haircut can lead to hours of gossip, what will charges of incest, backstabbing, blackmail, and arson produce? Even as the waves of shock and recrimination roll over the capital, the people there will be waiting, as I am now, to hear about the president. And now, on to our good President Coriolanus Snow, says Finnick. Such a young man when he rose to power. Such a clever one to keep it. How, you must ask yourself, did he do it? One word. That's all you really need to know. Poison. Finnick goes back to Snow's political ascension, which I know nothing of, and works his way up to the present, pointing out case after case of the mysterious deaths of Snow's adversaries or, even worse, his allies who had the potential to become threats. People dropping dead at a feast or slowly, inexplicably declining into shadows over a period of months. Blamed on bad shellfish, elusive viruses, or an overlooked weakness in the aorta. Snow drinking from the poisoned cup himself to deflect suspicion. But antidotes don't always work. They say that's why he wears the roses that reek of perfume. They say it's to cover the scent of blood from the mouth sores that will never heal. They say, Snow has a list and no one knows who will be next. Poison. The perfect weapon for a snake. Since my opinion of the capital and its noble president are already so low, I can't say Finnick's allegations shock me. They seem to have far more effect on the displaced capital rebels like my crew and Fulvia. Even Plutarch occasionally reacts in surprise, maybe wondering how a specific tidbit passed him by. When Finnick finishes, they just keep the cameras rolling until finally he has to be the one to say cut. The crew hurries inside to edit the material, and Plutarch leads Finnick off for a chat, probably to see if he has any more stories. I'm left with Haymitch in the rubble, pondering that Finnick's fate would have one day been mine. Of course it would have been. Snow could have gotten a really good price for the girl on fire. Did that happen to you? I ask Haymitch, not looking at him. I'm not even sure I want to know the answer. No. My mother and younger brother. My girl. They were all dead 2 weeks after I was crowned victor. Because of that stunt I pulled with the force field, he answers. Snow had no one to use against me. I'm surprised he didn't just kill you, I say. Oh, no, I was the example. The person to hold up to the young Finnicks and Johannas and Kashmirs. Of what could happen to a victor who caused problems, says Haymitch. But he knew he had no leverage against me. I don't reply to that. There really isn't anything to say. With our job done, there's nothing left for us to do but wait. We try to fill the dragging minutes in special defense. Tie knots. Push our lunch around our bowls. I watch Finn and Olive blow things up on the shooting range. Because of the danger of detection, no communication comes from the rescue team. At 15 o'clock, the designated hour, we stand tense and silent in the back of a room full of screens and computers and watch BT and his team try to dominate the airwaves. His usual fidgety distraction is replaced with a determination I have never seen. Most of my interview doesn't make the cut, just enough to show I am alive and still defiant. It is Finnick's salacious and gory account of the capital that takes the day. Is BT's skill improving? or are his counterparts in the capital a little too fascinated to want to tune Finnick out? For the next 60 minutes, the capital feed alternates between the standard afternoon newscast, Finnick, and attempts to black it all out. But the rebel techno team manages to override even the latter and, in a real coup, keeps control for almost the entire attack on Snow. "Let it go," says BT, throwing up his hands, relinquishing the broadcast back to the capital. He mops his face with a cloth. "If they're not out of there by now, they're all dead." He spins in his chair to see Finnick, Olive and me reacting to his words. "It was a good plan, though. Did Plutarch show it to you?" "Of course not." BT takes us to another room and shows us how the team, with the help of rebel insiders, has attempted, to free the victors from an underground prison. It seems to have involved knockout gas distributed by the ventilation system, a power failure, the detonation of a bomb in a government building several miles from the prison, and now the disruption of the broadcast. BT's glad we find the plan hard to follow, because then our enemies will, too. Like the electricity trap in the arena. I ask. Exactly. And see how well that worked out, says BT. I give him a forced smile, because it really didn't. Then we wait again. Wait. It must be midnight, it must be tomorrow when Chaff pushes open the door. They're back. "You're wanted in the hospital." My mouth opens with a flood of questions that he cuts off with "That's all I know." "Hey Mitchell's there already." Olive immediately sprints out of the room and down the corridor. I want to run, too, but Finnick's acting so strange, as if he's lost the ability to move, so I take his hand and lead him like a small child. Through special defense, into the elevator that goes this way and that, and onto the hospital wing. The place is in an uproar, with doctors shouting orders and the wounded being wheeled through the holes in their beds. "Trinket." The panicked scream is the first thing I can clearly make out. "Where are you taking her?" "Trinket. Get her back, get her back. Touch her and I'll kill you." Fe. I freeze, looking around, trying to find out what is happening. There's a gurney further down the corridor, on the way to surgery, Haymitch hurrying along next to it. Fe. With him, she's okay. Next I find Johanna, who's still screaming at the top of her lungs, fighting against a few nurses. She's emaciated, her head shaved, her flesh shows bruises and oozing scabs. But she still puts up a good fight. I hurry over just as they inject her with the sedatives, pushing them away and taking Johanna's hand. Haymitch's with her. "She's okay, Joe. She's safe. You're safe. You're safe now, Joe." Haymitch's with her, she repeats blearily and succumbs to the medicine. I want to keep looking for my sister, but I don't want to leave Johanna alone. I look up for help, maybe find my mum. I see Olive, and as she catches my eye, she untangles herself from Curie, who sinks into Wyas's arms instead. "I'll keep an eye on her," Olive says blankly as she reassures me. "Go find your sister." I nod and turn to leave, before remembering something. "Your parents weren't in the detention center," she says. "Go, Everdeen. They didn't get everyone out." That's all that registers for the next few seconds. Then, through a doorway, I catch a glimpse of Gale, stripped to the waist, perspiration streaming down his face as a doctor removes something from under his shoulder blade with a long pair of tweezers. He pays the doctor no attention, focused on a stretcher near him. I see a few dirty strands of blonde hair. I call his name, and Madge, start toward them until a nurse pushes me back and shuts me out. Finnick. Something between a shriek and a cry of joy. A lovely if somewhat bedraggled young woman, dark tangled hair, sea green eyes, runs toward us in nothing but a sheet. Finnick. And suddenly, it's as if there's no one in the world but these two, crashing through space to reach each other. They collide, enfold, lose their balance, and slam against a wall, where they stay. Clinging into one being. Indivisible. Boggs, looking a little worse for wear but uninjured, finds me. We couldn't find the Kentwells, nor Gloss. We think they must be holding them elsewhere. Katniss is at the end of the hall. The effects of the gas are just wearing off. You should be there when she wakes. Katniss is awake already, sitting on the side of the bed, looking bewildered as a trio of doctors reassure her, flashlights in her eyes, check her pulse. I'm disappointed that mine was not the first face she saw when she woke, but she sees it now. Her features register disbelief and something more intense that I can't quite place. It almost looks like panic, or anger, but that makes no sense. My lips are just forming her name when his fingers lock around my throat. The cold collar chafes my neck and makes the shivering even harder to control. I can't breathe normally, but I know it's in my head. The medical team's main concerns, damage to my spinal cord, airway, veins, and arteries, have been allayed. Bruising, hoarseness, the sore larynx, this strange little cough, not to be worried about. But I still feel like I can't get any air to my lungs. I want to know what's happening with Katniss, why she's like that, when I can see her. Our mum just came back to me, they wouldn't even let her see Katniss until they can determine whether she's a real danger, to everyone that is, it's obvious she's a danger to me. I want to scream until they give me answers, only I'm not supposed to even talk right now. I can't even thank Boggs when he comes to check on me. To look me over and tell me he's seen a lot worse injuries among the soldiers when they teach chokeholds in training. It was Boggs who knocked out Katniss with one blow before any permanent damage could be done. I don't know what's wrong with her. Wait, no, I do know something. Hijacked. That's the word I heard pass between Plutarch and Haymitch as I was wheeled past them in the hallway. Hijacked. I just don't know what it means. Mum spreads another blanket over me. I think they'll take the collar off soon, sweetheart. You won't be so cold then. She takes one of my hands, which is clutched in a fist, and massages it until it opens and blood begins to flow through my fingers again. She's starting on the second fist when the doctors show up, remove the collar, and give me a shot of something for pain and swelling. I lie, as instructed, with my head still, not aggravating the injuries to my neck. The two former game makers, Haymitch and BT, have been waiting in the hall for the doctors to give them clearance. As soon as they do, they tell the doctors to leave and try to order Mum out as well. She gives them a deadly glare. No. I'm not standing by while some game makers call the shots in my daughters' lives. Not with the abysmal job you've been doing so far. Plutarch looks offended, Celeste uncomfortable, but Haymitch chuckles. I'd let it go, Plutarch, he says. So, Primrose, Katniss's condition has come as a shock to all of us, says Plutarch. We couldn't know how badly she had deteriorated until she was rescued, at which point it became clear she was very disoriented. Obviously, she'd been abused, and we put her psychological state down to that. Now we believe something more was going on. That the Capitol has been subjecting her to a rather uncommon technique known as hijacking. BT. I'm sorry, BT says, but I can't tell you all the specifics of it, Prim. The Capitol's very secretive about this form of torture, and I believe the results are inconsistent. This we do know. It's a type of fear conditioning. The term hijack comes from an Old English word that means to capture, or even better, seize. We believe it was chosen because the technique involves the use of tracker jacker venom, and the jack suggested hijack. You were stung in your Hunger Games, so unlike most of us, you have first-hand knowledge of the effects of the venom. Terror. Hallucinations. Nightmarish visions of losing those I love. Because the venom targets the part of the brain that houses fear. I'm sure you remember how frightening it was. Did you also suffer mental confusion in the aftermath, asks BT. A sense of being unable to judge what was true and what was false. Most people who have been stung and lived to tell about it report something of the kind. I give a small shrug, because it wasn't really like that for me. Beat just continues anyways. Recall is made more difficult because memories can be changed. BT taps his forehead. Brought to the forefront of your mind, altered, and saved again in the revised form. Now imagine that I ask you to remember something, either with a verbal suggestion or by making you watch a tape of the event, and while that experience is refreshed, I give you a dose of tracker jacker venom. Not enough to induce a 3-day blackout. Just enough to infuse the memory with fear and doubt. And that's what your brain puts in long-term storage. My mother asks the question I can't. So that's what they did to my daughter. They made Katniss afraid of Prim. BT nods. So afraid that she'd see her as life-threatening. That she might try to kill her. Yes, that's our current theory. I cover my face with my hands, trying to will away the tears. This can't be happening. No one could make Katniss forget that she loves me. This can't be happening. But she's still in there, she has to be. If she had really wanted to kill me, I'm sure I'd be dead, no matter how fast Bobs reacted. Something in her still held her back. But you can reverse it, right? Asks Mum. Very little data on that, says Plutarch. None, really. If hijacking rehabilitation has been attempted before, we have no access to those records. Well, you're going to try, aren't you? She persists. You're not just going to lock her up in some padded room and leave her to suffer. Of course, we'll try, says BT. It's just, we don't know to what degree we'll succeed. If any. My guess is that fearful events are the hardest to root out. They're the ones we naturally remember the best, after all. And apart from her memories of Primrose, we don't yet know what else has been tampered with. That's why you haven't gotten clearance to see her, explains Plutarch. We're putting together a team of mental health and military professionals to come up with a counterattack. I, personally, feel optimistic that she'll make a full recovery. Do you? Asks my mother caustically. And what do you think, Haymitch? I shift my hands slightly so I can see his expression through the crack. He's exhausted and discouraged as he admits. I think Katniss might get somewhat better. But, I don't think she'll ever be the same. I snap my hands back together, closing the crack, shutting them all out. At least she's alive, says Plutarch, as if he's losing patience with the lot of us. We didn't find everyone, after her. Katniss is damaged, but she's here. With us. And that's a definite improvement over her situation 12 hours ago. Let's keep that in mind, all right. Mum ushers them out when she notices that he just upset me more, and then more or less bullies the doctors into releasing me into her care. To an outsider's, we're probably rude bordering on paranoid, but we just can't find it in us to trust these people. We're better off by ourselves. My mother knows that I can't be idle for long, so the next morning she says I can do what I want, as long as I don't overexert myself and only speak when necessary. I'm up really early, so I make my way to the Hawthorns' apartment. When I'm almost there, I hear Posey shouting. Logically, I know nothing can have happened, but I walk faster anyways, knocking urgently. Vic opens the door a slit and peeks out before opening the door all the way. He waves me in with a little smile and an apologetic shrug. Posey is red in the face and stomping her feet, screaming at Hazel, who's trying to get her to calm down. You said she's here now. You said so. I want Maggie, I want Maggie, I want. She falls into the chant just as Rory spots me and signals for us to leave the apartment. He takes me by the hand and leads me into an empty corridor. Are you okay? I was going to come see you, but they wouldn't let me into the hospital. I'm okay, I say. Deciding that talking to Rory definitely qualifies as necessary. What's with Posey? Rory runs a hand through his hair in a way that makes him look much older. Ma told her Madge is back. Only, now we're not allowed to see her. Gail's going absolutely mental. They have her sedated all the time. Apparently, something in his tone lets me know that this is a different day. The Capitol used her as a test to see how much venom they could safely pump into Katniss. Now the doctors think she might have been altered, too. It's considered too risky or whatever. He sounds dejected, angry, and powerless all at once. They won't even let Mayor, Mr. Undersea, into her room. How messed up is that? I'll go to Coin, I decide. But first, I'll see what my mum thinks. Maybe she can do something. Maybe Rory agrees. He doesn't sound very optimistic. I make my way to the hospital to find Mum. She's probably still in surgery if I have her schedule right, but I'll go already anyway. I can use the time to check up on Effie and the others, though, which I wanted to do anyway. I haven't yet seen Effie, nor have I had time to get Haymitch alone and get an update from him. When I get there, both Effie and Johanna are either asleep or sedated, it's hard to tell which. John's sitting on a chair between their beds, slumped halfway across Johanna's. She looks very malnourished and exhausted, but other than that she seems healthy enough. Curie's in a similar state, curled up on the foot of Effie's bed, Olive behind her, absent-mindedly petting the younger girl's hair. Olive's staring at the door to the doctor's office. It is closed and a few doctors are discussing something. Olive looks up as I enter the room but turns straight back to staring. Everyone okay? I ask the room at large. No one really acknowledges the question. Johnsa lifts her head and vaguely points towards the doctors. They are planning something. I don't trust them. I walk over to them and sit down in the edge of Johanna's bed. Why is that? They won't tell us where they have Madge, Johnsa says, dropping her head on the bed again. They sedated Effie just for asking. Said she was upsetting herself and shouldn't be stressed so soon after the surgery, but really they just thought she was being difficult. We cannot talk any further, as the doctors choose that moment to walk in. They tell Curie to get off Effie's bed so they can move her to another ward. In the blink of an eye, both Olive and I are between the doctors and the bed. Does Hamish know about this? I demand at the same time as Olive says you can't move her. If Johanna wakes up and she's gone, there will be hell to pay. You can't separate us, Johnsa puts in, sounding slightly panicked. You can't. You already took Madge and Katniss. She's about to cry, her starved body shaking with the effort of getting to her feet. You can't separate us. Please. There is no reason to get agitated, a doctor tells her, not gently. I know her, she's generally very friendly, a surprisingly warm woman when compared to the usual sterile behavior of most people here. It won't hurt you to be separated. They kept us safe, Curie says, and everyone turns to stare at her. Her eyes are fixed in the bedsheet, but she definitely just said that. The doctor that just spoke seems to realize the magnitude of this as well, because she looks at each of her colleagues in turn before nodding. Very well. We'll attempt it this way for a while longer. As we're on the subject of separating everyone, I say, giving the doctor a bright smile. I was wondering whether I could see Madge. She appraises me for a few seconds before replying. I really don't think that's a very good idea. But it isn't up to me, only the president can give you clearance. I'll go ask her, then I say, still smiling. It isn't the doctor's fault, after all. So while they check up on their patients, I take Olive to the side and talk strategy with her. By the time my mother arrives, I quickly fill her in and we're off to command. Cohen doesn't look pleased to be disturbed, but waves us into the room anyway. Unsurprisingly, our request is not exactly met with enthusiasm. I let Mum do most of the talking, as she can best argue it from a medical point of view. I'm someone she knows from home, but we don't have a very close connection. She says it's our best bet to see what damage they did to her without greatly endangering anyone. And whatever information we can gain from her, it'll likely help us fix Katniss. Once she laid out all her arguments, Cohen fixes us with a calculating look, one after the other, before finally giving us her answer. All right, Dr. Everdeen, you make a good point. You can see her. But only you, and Bobs will accompany you. It's not exactly what we hoped for, but it's better than nothing, so I force myself to thank Cohen. Olive goes back to Curie and the others while Bobs takes me and Mum downstairs. Gale and Mr. Undersea are standing outside the room, not speaking, intently staring through the window that I know is only a mirror from inside the room. With a short greeting and explanation, I take up a spot next to them as Bobs leads my mother into the room. Mum walks over to Madge's bed, Bobs remains further back. Then Mum leans over Madge, adjusting her medication and settling into wait. I think we all hold our breath when Madge opens her eyes. Mum. Madge says, her voice hoarse from disuse as she struggles to sit up. My mother leans in to support her, then gently brushes her hair out of her face. No, Madge, darling. It's Marigold Everdeen. Katniss's mother. She pauses, obviously unsure how to continue, or if to continue at all. Prim's mother. We all tense, expecting the worst. I can see Bobs's muscles moving under his shirt as he readies himself to react. But Madge only nods, closing her eyes and dropping back down onto the bed. Are they dead? They are, aren't they? My parents. Your father's outside, Mum offers gently. He can't come in right now, though. I'm here to see if you're okay, first. To see if I'm crazy, you mean, Madge says, her voice taking on a pleading tone. Dangerous. It's only when they inject me, I swear. I never hurt anyone when it wore off again. Ask Effie, she'll tell you. I never meant to hurt her, she knows that. The venom's gone now. Please, I want to see my dad. I want Gail. Please. My mum takes one of her hands in both of hers. Later, sweetie, I promise. She glances over her shoulder at Boggs, then back to Madge. How are you feeling, dear? Can I see Effie? Madge asks instead of answering. Or Joe? Please, can I see Johanna? Her eyes go out of focus for a few seconds before she looks at my mother again. Do you know what happened to my parents? I'd like to see them. Not right now, dear, my mother repeats, just as Gail turns to me. What's wrong with her? Why doesn't she know she just asked that? I give a small shrug, uncomfortable with making an assessment right now. Could be anything. Short-term memory loss, most like. Nutrient deficiency, concussion, stress, maybe an adverse reaction to the meds. Maybe it's nothing. Brain stuff is weird, I don't really know. In the room, my mother is still trying to get Madge to answer her questions, but Madge is more preoccupied with asking questions of her own. It's one in particular that makes us all freeze. Can I at least talk to Peter, then? Give me a moment, will you? Mum says, standing up and waving Boggs out of the room with her. She looks grave and slightly confused. I'll need to speak to the department heads of neuro and psych. I thought it was short-term memory loss, but if she thinks Peter is alive, that's something else. Not much later, Boggs has gotten the needed doctors assembled and they are back speaking to Madge. She's getting more and more agitated and rather exasperated with every question they ask. Look, stop it, will you? I know what we all saw in the games. But he isn't dead. I saw him, okay. Ask the others, I'm sure they must have met him, too. The Capitals had him for over a year, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, that means they still have him. So stop annoying me and go save him. With that, she pulls a pillow over her head and refuses to acknowledge anyone's presence. Within minutes, Boggs has informed Cohen and a meeting in command is called to discuss the matter. Are we putting any trust in the ramblings of a drugged, hallucinating, psychologically damaged teenager? Cohen says. I elbow Gail in the ribs because I know whatever he's just opening his mouth to say won't work in our favor. Celeste Horan awkwardly clears her throat. Excuse me, President, but I think she might be right. She flushes a bright red as everyone turns to look at her. She hardly ever speaks in command meetings. She throws Plutarch a look, almost asking for help, before she continues. There always was rumors, speculations. It was rather odd that Seneca not only kept his head but his position after the disaster of the 74th games. Now she looks at me, blushing even harder. Not that I look at it as a disaster, I only meant. She falters, and Plutarch swoops in. Well, we did wonder about Crane, that is true. Peter wasn't dead when they took him, I chime in, remembering the little fact I never let myself dwell on. Very nearly, but not dead. Madge could be right. Be that as it may, Cohen says slowly, we can't risk another rescue attempt on the basis of speculation. It is far too dangerous. But while I have you all here, we do need fresh propo material. I was thinking District 8. Boggs, Plutarch, I leave the Mockingjay in your hands. With that, we are dismissed and she waves away all protest as she imperiously sweeps from the room, leaving me to ponder Peter's fate. Once again I am handed over to my prep team to be readied for a propo. Boggs is standing off to one side, briefing me on the situation in 8. He sounds rather optimistic about it, but to me it just sounds awfully bleak. While the district is firmly in rebel hands, its people are suffering. Plutarch doesn't comment on the briefing much, rather directing my prep team on how to style me. Just as I am relatively up to speed, Gail stalks into the room, looking disgruntled yet determined. I'm coming, too. I raise an eyebrow at him and he gives a small shake of his head in reply, letting me know he won't say more in front of Boggs, and especially Plutarch. What about Olive? I ask the room at large. Is she meeting us on the hovercraft? Soldier Cantwell doesn't have clearance to leave 13 at the moment, Boggs says. Her mental state is worrisome. Nor do I think she would want to leave, she practically lives with the rescued prisoners at the moment. He scowls, but then his face softens. The nurses are quite happy, to be frank, the girl has a way of dealing with Mason. Based on a shared disdain for rules, I imagine Plutarch puts in. I can tell he's not happy about not getting Olive for the propos as well. He's obviously not used to not getting his way, because the smallest thing makes him sulk like a child. I exchange a look with Gale but don't comment. Plutarch usually means well but brings it across awfully. Plutarch shrugs and looks me over, then clasps his hands together. Very well, you're perfect, let's get going, then. Yes, let's I say. The sooner we're gone, the sooner we'll be back and I can go back to the hospital. And I'm more excited than I'd like to admit about going to see another district. Boggs and Plutarch lead the way, discussing last-minute details. I look to Gale. So? How come you're coming along? A muscle in his jaw twitches and he looks utterly resigned. It was strongly suggested to me that I better do exactly what Cohen asks if I want to see Madge. Right now, you're apparently not enough for a propos, so here I am. This is the capital all over again, I mutter. Like, Snow did the exact same thing to me. She's just him all over again. Except that this time, it's like people don't see it, you know. I thought she was different, too, at first, Gale says with a bitter laugh. That she was actually going to make some sort of change for the better. But if the capital falls, when it falls, she's gonna take Snow's place, isn't she? I nod and am about to say more when Boggs calls for us to hurry up. We strap into our seats on the hovercraft and off we are. The hovercraft makes a quick, spiral descent onto a wide road on the outskirts of 8. Almost immediately, the door opens, the stairs slide into place, and we're spit out onto the asphalt. The moment the last person disembarks, the equipment retracts. Then the craft lifts off and vanishes. There's not as many soldiers with us as there was in 11, so Gale, our camera team and I help lug the supplies our crafts brought along towards the base. It's apparently one of many and the rebel leaders move around, never all in one place if they can avoid it. The district is half in ruins, though, so they can't have that many safe places left. Boggs knocks a short, probably agreed upon rhythm against a steel door and it creaks open to admit us. A tall, dark-skinned woman waves us in, eyebrows shooting up at the sight of me. This is Commander Paler of 8, says Boggs. Commander, Soldier Primrose Everdeen. She looks young to be a commander. Early 30s, maybe. But it seems that this rebellion is built around young leaders anyway, and at 13, I can hardly call anyone too young for anything. Yes, I know who she is, says Paler. We weren't expecting her to run weapon deliveries. Boggs smiles at that wryly. She's here to do more than that. Rally the troops, see the situation here, let the nation know we're still fighting. Did you bring the other one? Paler asks and I'm confused for a few seconds. Then I realize who she means. Oh, no, Olive is, she's. I look to Boggs for help, unsure what to say. No, she had a mental breakdown and is basically locked up in 13 doesn't seem like the right answer, somehow. Boggs clears his throat. Soldier Cantwell is occupied otherwise. Paler seems to be able to tell that that's just putting it nicely, but she doesn't push, shrugging instead. Pity. We could have used a few more peacekeepers joining the cause. We had a whole wave of defectors when you two were in 11. Sorry, just me, I reply. Paler gives me a small smile. Well, glad to have you, Soldier Everdeen. I follow Paler into their command center, where we're all briefed on Paler's plan for the day, seeing as we're going to be tagging along with her for the day. You can't film everything, obviously, Paler tells Cressida as an afterthought. Cressida nods. Of course, we wouldn't compromise any important locations. Then we go out into the district. I'm flanked by Boggs and Gale, which serves to make me feel incredibly tiny. There's people here and there in the streets and we walk up to greet them, check how everyone's doing and, in Paler's case, pass on information. Where food and medical aid is given out that day. People seem happy to see me and I actually feel like I'm doing something useful. I'm almost happy by midday, when we visit the impromptu orphanage they set up. The second we step inside, my good mood evaporates. It's shockingly crowded. There's rows upon rows of beds and small cots, most looking hastily put together. There's that many orphans here. Gail says quietly. Paler nods, her mouth a thin line. And that's only the kids that made it to us. We move through the room, stopping to talk to children here and there. A little boy stretches out his arms to be picked up and I do, carrying him on my hip as I walk further through the crowd. He falls asleep nuzzled against my shoulder within minutes. I'm in the middle of a game they made up with a few kids when Boggs walks up, gently touching my shoulder. We have to get back to the hovercraft. Now. What's wrong? I ask, already dreading the answer. Boggs gives a small shake of his head and motions for me to follow him away from the children. Reluctantly, I put the little boy down on a nearby cot and follow Boggs outside, where the rest of our team is already waiting. As we run towards base camp, the sirens begin blaring, and a formation of bombers uncloaks to deliver its payload. We can't land in this, Plutarch's voice announces in my headset. I activate the group wave line, knowing the others won't be able to hear me otherwise. Chaos is already reigning around us. What do you think they're doing? Is this because we're here? No, too short notice for that, Boggs replies. Maybe the hospital, take out the wounded. Can't be, Gale puts in. I talked to Paler, they just relocated the hospital. No way, does Snow already know where they are? What, then? I ask, just as the answer hits me. Psychological warfare. Hit the rebels where it hurts everyone. The orphanage. I shout into my mouthpiece and spin back around. I hear Boggs give a series of commands, but I don't really pay any attention. I'm not a fighter, and all I can think of right now is running. I make it to the orphanage out of breath and with burning muscles, but the building still stands. I grab the first rebel soldier I see, screaming to make myself heard over the racket. We have to evacuate that building. Right now. It's not a military target, he shouts back, but he sounds uncertain. He's young and undertrained and terrified, and glad to relinquish control to Boggs, who's hot on my heels. Soldier Everdeen, take cover, he says before running into the building. I stare at his back for about half a second before muttering, like hell I will, and following him inside. He only shrugs when he sees me, his look one of well, can't say I didn't try, as he signals for a soldier to stick with me. We herd the children towards the exit, our group almost there when a bomber crashes into the building. There's screaming and fire and the smell of burned flesh, and now the exit's cut off. I hear Paler's voice over the chaos. Everyone against that wall. I can't make out where she is, but people closest to her see where she's pointing and everyone follows suit. She and Boggs are on the other side of the room, fumbling with something before running towards us. The explosion they rigged rocks the whole building, and I'm sure we all expect the roof to come down. It doesn't, though, and the escape route they planned is open to us. We usher out the children as fast as we can, a few soldiers taking them in groups to nearby shelters. That seems to be everyone. I hear Boggs' voice in my headset, but just then I think I catch a movement a few dozen yards into the building. Without thinking further, I run towards it, calling out. There's only sobbing in return, and the smoke biting in my eyes makes it next to impossible to see anything at all. I stumble further into the building, trying to find whoever is crying. I call out again, and this time I get an answer. My sister. Please, my sister needs help, a small voice says. I can't see the child. Keep talking, I need to follow your voice. I find two little girls, one trapped under a piece of rubble. Luckily, even I am strong enough to get it off her once I find a piece of metal I can use as a lever. Even through my protective gloves, my skin blisters from touching the hot metal. Everything around me is painfully hot, even the air. I will myself not to think of the forest fire in my games. The little girl kneels next to her unconscious sister. Is she dead? Like Ma and Pa? No, she'll be fine, I say, more confident than I feel. I have to carry her. Can you walk? She nods, tears in her eyes. I try to manage a smile. Hold on to my belt, yeah. Don't let go. I'm woozy by the time I can make out the exit, spots dancing before my eyes. The weight of the tiny girl feels like the heaviest thing in this world. Her sister keeps stumbling and almost bringing me down with her. But then I'm outside, and there's cheering, and I manage to grin at everyone before I cough so hard I throw up and then faint into the mess. I wake up to Boggs staring down at me. "Are you alright?" I make a sound somewhere between the word sure and gagging. Boggs seems satisfied that I'm responding at all. He helps me sit up and gives me some water from his flask. I choke down a few mouthfuls gratefully. What happened? I look around. Why are we on the hovercraft? I wanted to help. You did, he assures me, and I believe him. But I needed to see you to safety as well. He clears his throat and suddenly reminds me an awful lot of my mum. Oh no, a lecture. I glance around for help, but Gail is giving me a "well, you kind of deserve it" look, and Pullers just shrugs helplessly. Everyone else seems otherwise occupied. "What you did was reckless, beyond stupid and careless," Boggs says. "It was utterly irresponsible, Primrose." "Yeah, I get called that a lot," I say. He frowns, thrown off track. "Which one?" I give him a sheepish grin. "Primrose." He groans and rolls his eyes, but there's a smile tugging at his lips. "Right, I hear you, no lecture. But that's only because, while incredibly stupid, you were also incredibly brave." Now he's smirking at me. "And because whatever I could say, I know it will be nothing compared to what you'll hear from your mother once she finds out." He pats my shoulder good-naturedly and leaves for the cockpit. "You're so done for," Pullers signs, and I flip him off before signing back. "Shut up and have some pity. He's telling on me. I'd rather have him lecture me." "Your mum's gonna see the propo anyway," Pullers replies. "Better she finds out now, while you can play up your injuries." "True. I'm still so dead though," I reply. He just nods at that and I roll my eyes. Cressida walks over just then. Boggs says to strap into our seats. We're about to land. First thing upon landing, we're brought into command where we review all that happened. Only now do I learn everything myself. While I was helping evacuate the hospital, Gail was leading an assault on the Capitol bombers, bringing them down with the custom-made bow and the help of rebel soldiers. Plutarch plays a few snippets of Cressida's footage and Coin looks pleased. Boggs, take Soldier Hawthorne to see his fiancée. Psyche has declared her not to be an immediate danger to others. The timing is of course blatantly suspicious, but Gail looks so relieved I hold my tongue, waiting to be dismissed as well. She looks me over carefully. "To the hospital with you, Soldier Everdeen. Have them make sure you've not done any vital damage to yourself." "Yes, President Coin," is all I say in reply, glad to be allowed to leave. Since she didn't specify which hospital wing to go to, I head for the one where they have the rescued hostages, even though it's rather far from command. All I find there is Johanna and a note on her bedside table. "Joe, don't worry, everyone's fine. Curie's with Wyas, Effie's in surgery, Johnson's in rehab for her leg, I'm back in psych. We'll be back as soon as I can. Olive." I'm guessing she didn't want Johanna to wake up to find the empty room with no explanation. I turn back to the bed and find Johanna blinking at me, looking very dazed. "Hi, Joe," I say uncertainly. I'm not sure she's properly awake. She squints at me until she recognizes me. "The Mockingjay. Hello." Then she frowns. "Why are you here? Where's the pretty one?" "Excuse me?" I say, confused. It takes me a few seconds to puzzle that out. "Oh. Do you mean Olive?" She rolls her eyes at that. "Duh. Dibs, by the way." She wags her finger at me sternly but then reaches out and pokes my nose instead, whispering "BOOP" and giggling. I stare from her to the morphling drip in her arm, rounding the bed and checking the settings. Oh my god, who set that? That's a really bad dosage. "Joe, I think you're high." "That's the idea," brainless Joe says, swatting at me as I correct the settings. Don't. I finally figured out how to override their stupid block. They weren't giving me enough. "You can't be in that much pain," I argue, albeit unsure. Maybe she is. Or maybe she just needs it. I glance at the marks my nails have left all over my arms. "Whatever helps you cope," I heard Haymitch say to Chaff once. "You don't knock another victor's crutches." "No," she admits, sitting up and drinking a glass of water before splashing some in her face, sobering considerably. I need it. Just as long as I'm alone. Okay. I don't know anyone else who can simultaneously sound so vulnerable, angry and threatening. I sit down on the edge of her bed. Anything I can do for you? Keep your mouth shut about the morphling, she replies. I nod. They'll notice, though, you know that, right? The drip will be empty too soon and then they won't give you any. Even for the physical pain. Then what? Joe shrugs. I'll bum Effie's, she hates the stuff. Right, I sigh. I'm just worried, Johanna. I'm not trying to, I don't know, upset you or anything. I'm fine, she says, and before I can argue that she very obviously isn't, my mother comes into the room. I jump up, but before I can get even a halfway logically excuse made up, she's already rounded on me. Don't even think about walking off, young lady. I know exactly what you did, Ronan already told me. Who? I say, perplexed. My mother frowns at me. What do you mean, who? Commander Boggs. I go dumbly. Weirdly enough, it never occurred to me that he obviously must have a first name. Mum directs me over to another bed, giving me a complete checkup while berating me. The words idiotic and careless feature heavily. By the end, Johanna is barely stifling a laugh and my cheeks are glowing red. My mother huffs angrily and then kisses my forehead. Regardless, I am proud of you. But do something like that again and I will ground you until the end of your days, Mockingjay or not. Understood? Yes, Mum, I mumble. She nods. Good. Now, your escort's in the recovery room and your mentor's been dragged to some meeting, so why don't you go sit with her? The one on level D. I practically run from the room before she can change her mind, not to mention that I wouldn't want Effie to wake up all alone. After I ask the nurse if she could leave us alone, I sit next to Effie's bed and debate with myself whether or not to read the chart hanging on the foot of the bed. I'm not sure I actually want to know, and it feels like betrayal, so in the end, I decide against it. Instead, I carefully study her face, trying to tell myself she'll be okay. When she opens her eyes, I reach out to gently touch her hand. Hey, Effie. How are you feeling? Prim, she says, a real smile spreading across her gaunt face. Oh, it's so good to finally see you. Johnson said you came by while I was sedated. Are you all right, dear? I nod, and when she pats the covers next to her, I curl up there, telling her about everything and nothing. I just walked her through what happened in 8 when Haymitch arrives. He walks over to us with a portable computer. Scoot over. I perch on the edge of the bed, watching Effie and Haymitch settle down on the bed so naturally as if they've done so a million times before. I almost scoff at them. Married to make her a more obvious pressure point. They are probably the only two people in all of Panem to believe that. But I don't comment, they have to figure that out themselves. Instead, I address Haymitch. What do you have there? Cressida gave me today's footage, he says. I lean in, interested. They already made the propos. He shakes his head and pulls up different scenes at random. When he gets to the part where I fall face first into my own vomit, he laughs a lot harder than I feel this warrants. I cross my arms and glare at him while Effie just chuckles, dropping her head against his shoulder. Well, like mentor, like mentee. Now it's my turn to laugh at him. The next morning, just as I'm leaving breakfast to go to my classes, Bob stops me in the corridor. We need you in the hospital. They're going to try something on Katniss. They want to send in someone from 12, they are screening people now. I thought you could help. Who are we looking for? I ask as we walk along. Bob sighs heavily. That's the problem. We want someone as innocuous as possible, someone who Katniss doesn't associate with you, THA Capital or the games, maybe someone she shares childhood memories with. But that seems a lot harder than we anticipated. She never had a lot of friends, I admit. Gal and Madge, that's about it, and it seems they are both right out with the parameters they set. When we arrive at the hospital room that has been turned into a workspace for Katniss's recovery team, there's already a heated debate going on. Apparently, the only options they see are Levy and Delly, both of whom shared at least a few classes with Katniss. I give them both a small smile. So, which one of you is going to go in? Levy shrugs, twisting the hem of her shirt around uncomfortably, and Plutarch answers for them. We're not sure yet. Neither really have that much of a connection with Katniss, to be frank. Katniss was always so amazing, I never dreamed she would notice me, says Delly. The way she could hunt and go in the hob and everything. Everyone admired her so. I bite my lower lip nervously, trying to come up with something helpful to say. Well, Levi was there when Katniss, at the whipping. And Delly was really close to Peter. So we have the potential triggers with both of you. But I think we should go with Delly. That can't be as bad as the whipping. Right. I say it with more conviction than I feel. Plutarch clasps his hands together and nods. Let's give it a shot, then. Plutarch, Boggs, Haymitch, and I go to the observation room next to where Katniss is confined. It's crowded with 10 members of her recovery team armed with pens and clipboards. The one-way glass and audio setup allow us to watch Katniss secretly. She lies on the bed, her arms strapped down. She doesn't fight the restraints, but her hands fidget continuously, and bruising around the cuffs tells me she must have tried to get them off before. Her expression seems more lucid than when she tried to strangle me, but it's still not one that belongs to her. When the door quietly opens, her eyes widen in alarm, then become confused. Delly crosses the room tentatively, but as she nears her she naturally breaks into a smile. Katniss. It's Delly. From home. Delly. Some of the clouds seem to clear. Delly. It's you. Yes, she says with obvious relief. How do you feel? Awful. Where are we? What's happened? Asks Katniss. Here we go, says Haymitch. But before Delly can reply, Katniss presses on. What's going on now? Where's Madge? Have you seen her? Delly shakes her head, then hastens to add, but Gale has, and she seems to be all right. No one came to see me, Katniss says, and it sounds accusatory. Delly's clearly uncomfortable now but soldiers on. Well, no, but everyone really wants to see you. It's just, we're not sure what's going on yet, see, so only medical staff. You're not medical staff, Katniss interrupts her. And my mother is. Why isn't she here? She's growing more and more agitated with each word. Is she with it? She is, isn't she? She's with it. What do you mean? Delly says uncertainly, and there's a quiver to her voice now. Katniss is pulling at her restraints, throwing her whole body forward, her eyes frantic. That thing they sent us back, that thing everyone pretends is Prim. It isn't. A pleading tone now, panic in her eyes. I don't know what it is, Delly. But it isn't my sister. I'm swaying slightly, bile rising in my throat, Haymitch's hand on my shoulder. Katniss's every word cuts me like a knife. They killed her, I know they did, and gave us that thing. It's not her, it's so cold, I don't know what it is. Katniss, you know that's not true, Delly starts, but that just sets Katniss off into a screaming, raging mess. It has to die. They killed Prim. Someone needs to kill that thing. They took her and killed her and sent us it. I want it gone, I want it dead, I need it dead. Get her out of there, says Plutarch. The door opens immediately and Delisle but runs from the room. I'm shaking badly, tears streaming down my face as I stare at my sister in her panic-fueled fury. Shut it off already, Boggs snaps, and the sound breaks down, the window turning to a mirror on our side as well. She's gone for now, but the gut-wrenching ache in my heart won't ever go away, I know that. Prim. Haymitch says hesitantly. You okay, there? I nod, staring straight ahead. I just need a minute. I need to be alone right now. With that, I push my way from the room, practically feeling Boggs and Haymitch's eyes burn into the back of my head with concern. Alone was actually not what I had in mind, but they don't really know Katniss, I can't talk to them about this. I'm halfway to our room when I remember Mum won't be back from surgery yet, so I turn around and head to the Hawthorns instead. I knock and Rory opens the door almost immediately. Oh, thank God. I was starting to get worried. He gestures me into the room. Are you okay? You didn't show up to training and Gale had no idea what was happening, so I figured you hadn't left the district, and then I couldn't find you. I let my head fall against his shoulder and wrap my arms around him. Okay would be an overstatement. By the time I'm done telling him what happened, I'm in tears, but still feel somewhat relieved. I wipe at my eyes and smile a little, albeit sadly. Well, thanks for listening, anyways. Anytime, you know that, replies Rory, pressing a kiss to my forehead. So what's gonna happen now? I don't know, I admit. I guess we just have to wait and hope. They'll figure it out. They have to. They will, he says, and I think he actually means it. With the conviction in his voice, I can almost believe it, too. I get up with a much more sincere smile. I'll head back to our apartment now, see if Mum's back yet. I'll see you at dinner, yeah. The door to our apartment slides open at my touch. My mother's back, as I'd figured, but she's not alone. She and Boggs are sitting at the small table, talking intently, her hands cupped in both of his. When the door slides shut with its usual whoosh and alerts them to my presence, they jerk apart so fast Boggs almost topples his chair over. I raise my eyebrows at them but say nothing. My mum comes over to hug me. Are you okay, sweetie? Ronan was just telling me about what happened with Katniss. I'm fine, I say. She looks at me with worry and tears in her eyes. I pat her hand gently. Really, Mum, I'm okay. It's so cold, that isn't my sister. I step away from her, clearing my throat. It'll all be fine. I turn to Boggs to deflect my mother's attention. Right. They'll find a way to help her. Boggs nods, giving me a strained smile. Of course they will. Of course, Mum agrees quickly. Do you want to do evening rounds with me? It's been a while since you came along. I look down at the schedule on my arm before deciding everyone's used to me not exactly following it anyways. Yeah, I'd like that. We go from patient to patient until we come across Estelle, who I didn't know was in hospital. I rush over, concerned. Elle. What happened? She shrugs and then winces, clutching her shoulder. I messed myself up in training pretty badly. Her face splits into a huge grin. My team won, though. I got named team leader. That's really cool. I'm more enthusiastic about her obvious joy than about what she has to tell me, but it doesn't matter either way. I haven't seen her properly happy in forever. Actually, I've been seeing her far too little anyway. How are you doing? Except for the dislocated shoulder, obviously. I'm okay, she says. Livia and Marlin are great, you know, letting me live with them and all. And school's much more interesting here, so's training and all. But what about you? We barely see you anymore. I cringe. I know, I'm sorry. I'm just really swamped. It's okay, we've seen the footage, I'm not blaming you, she replies good-naturedly. I just worry sometimes. District 8 looked really scary. Oh, they broadcasted that already? I ask. I haven't even seen it yet. But, yeah, it was pretty scary. Not as bad as 11, mind you. That was. I trail off with a shudder. Estelle reaches out to squeeze my hand. You don't have to talk about it. Really, I get it. I don't like thinking about what happened at home, either. I cringe. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. No, it's fine, Estelle says. Really, it's okay. Are you, if it's okay to ask, do you have to do something like that again? I guess so, yeah, I reply. But it's not all bad, really. I mean, I guess I'm helping, right? And I have my team with me, I'm safer than anyone else out there. There's always a few soldiers from 13, Gale, Boggs. Estelle cuts me off, beaming. Oh, he's dreamy, isn't he? Who? Gale. I ask, perplexed. She never said anything back in 12. Now she frowns at me. What? No. Commander Boggs, duh. I guess. I offer uncertainly, looking over my shoulder to make sure Mum isn't close enough to overhear. He's kinda old. God, you're just wearing Rory goggles, she says with a roll of her eyes. I giggle lightly. That doesn't even mean anything, Elle. I tell Mum to go ahead without me and stay with Estelle, ending up having dinner with her and getting thrown out by a nurse once it's too late. Surprisingly, There's a light on in the room when I come in. Olive sits on her bed, vaguely staring at the ceiling. I cross over to sit down next to her. Hiya. Didn't know you'd be back. She shrugs. Apparently I'm not an immediate suicide risk anymore. So they kicked me out of the hospital. Plus, they moved Curie in with Wyas, and Johnson with Demeter and Glamour, so maybe they just wanted to clear out a few beds. Maybe, I say. I think they want you back in action, though. The commander of 8, Paler, asked about you when we were there. Apparently, you make a big impact on the peacekeeper forces. They could let me go back home, she says wistfully. Just for a few hours. I bet you that would make an impact. I shift closer, resting my head on her shoulder. There's a command meeting tomorrow morning. We could see if we can get them to let us go. I'd like that, she replies. I'd really like that. I think it's a good idea, Plutarch say. It's the last of the districts that is still giving us severe trouble. And until all the districts are secured, we can't march on the capital. There's nodding and mumbles of agreement all around, even Cohen looks pleased. A short visit won't do, I'm afraid. I'll give you 3 weeks on this. Make the best of it or I'll see myself forced to bomb the whole district into oblivion, rebels and all. Gale pushes Olive back into her seat as casually as possible and Boggs quickly talks over her to keep the situation from escalating. The situation has deteriorated. While almost no one remains on the capital's side, they have not joined the rebellion either. We suspect it's because they are following the lead of their victors. Well, what do you expect? Finnick puts in. For once, everyone is assembled in command. The rebellion has not treated them all too well, has it? Cohen purses her lips in disapproval. Savina is hindering the liberation of her district. That makes her a traitor to the cause. Beria never was with the rebels, Finn argues. How exactly can she be a traitor? Olive clears her throat. I can fix this, okay. But you bomb my home and I swear, if it's the last thing I do, I will carve. The Mountain Celeste blurts out, apparently just wanting to cut Olive off. It houses the heart of the capital's military. That's what we need to take down. Exactly, Cohen says, giving Olive a cold stare, a hint of a smirk on her lips that makes my stomach clench with dread. You will not be seeing the victors without my express permission or Boggs will drag you back here by your ears, which you clearly are still wet behind. Whatever, Olive grinds out testily. When are we going? Cohen takes a moment to check her notes. Tomorrow morning. Boggs, see that soldiers Kentwell, Everdeen and Hawthorne have all they'll need. I can't go, Gale says. I'm not leaving Madge for 3 weeks. Well, then you'll just have to fix the situation in 2 faster, won't you? Cohen says pleasantly and dismisses everyone. We spend our time before dinner packing our stuff up for the next day, then I go to say goodbye to Rory while Olive goes to see Joe. The next morning, we're up at dawn. Mum tells me to be careful, worry creasing her brow. I smile and kiss her cheek. Relax, Mum, Boggs'll keep an eye on me. She smiles weakly before kissing my forehead and then surprising me by hugging Olive goodbye as well. You take care, too, yeah. Sure, Mrs. E. Olive replies, patting her back gently before untangling herself. I raise my eyebrows at her as we walk down the corridor. Olive shrugs. She checked up on me a lot when they had me on psych watch. I guess she adopted me now. I'll try not to make her love me more than you, even if it'll be hard. Very funny, I deadpan, and Olive sticks her tongue out at me. I'm just very lovable, okay? We're the last to arrive in the hangar, stowing our stuff and strapping us into the seats on the hovercraft. I fall asleep again quickly, only coming to when an excited Olive shakes me awake. District 2 is a large district, as one might expect, composed of a series of villages spread across the mountains. Each was originally associated with a mine or quarry, although now, many are devoted to the housing and training of peacekeepers. None of this would present much of a challenge, since the rebels have 13 air power on their side, except for one thing. At the center of the district is a virtually impenetrable mountain that houses the heart of the capital's military, the Mountain Celeste mentioned. We land on the rebel base, a group of soldiers at the ready to meet us there. Olive lets out a shriek of delight and sprints ahead of the group, one of the soldiers racing to meet her. She throws herself into his arms, her laughter bubbling across the square as he spins her around and around. As he sets her down, she grabs his hand and drags him towards us, beaming brightly. Everyone, this is Nero. Nero, the squad. Last time I saw him, I was standing on the wide marble steps of the Justice Building on my victory tower, staring down at his family as well as Olive's. I offer him a timid smile. Hello. Just because Olive is oddly okay with me being alive after watching her sister die mere meters away from me, it doesn't mean Nero will be as generous. He grins at me, delighted. Oh my god, you're teensy. I knew they were very good with camera angles when they made it look like Livy could see over a tabletop, but you're ridiculously small. I'm 13. I say, unsure how to react to him. Olive elbows him in the ribs as Cressida steps forward to shake his hand. We are very, very good with camera angles, thanks for noticing. How's Julia? Olive chimes in, linking arms with Nero. He shrugs. Not so great, right now. Pa got killed when we originally took the villages, Ma's a spy in the mountain, so we don't see a lot of her. And I can't really keep a kid around the rebel base, too dangerous. Inoberia's taking care of two for me, the victor's village remains neutral. Olive pales. I'm so sorry. I didn't know about your dad. Yeah, well, now you do, he says with a glance towards the rest of us. Can we change the subject? By now, the rest of the rebels have made their way over to us as well. Leading them is a victor named Lime, and no one needs to mess with camera angles to make her seem impressive. She's as tall as Gale and very muscular. After greeting us, she takes us into our new home for the next few weeks. I watch Lime training her soldiers, sitting off to the side with a 16-year-old called Aurelius. He's one of them brains that is supposed to help us figure out how to take down the mountain, and BT as well, as I have taken quite a liking to him. BT's kind of mentoring him, and I just really enjoy hanging out with him. Nero's got him now, Aurelius remarks, sipping his drink. I watch as Gale has his opponent in a chokehold, my eyebrows raised. Nero looks pretty got, actually. Now drawls Aurelius, holding up one hand between us, slowly lowering one finger after the next. Just as he makes a fist, Nero crouches down slightly and yanks Gale off his feet in a maneuver too quick for me to follow. Once he has Gale on his back, he places a foot firmly on his chest while holding down his arms. I let out a low whistle. How'd you see that coming? Aurelius shrugs. I was in an academy for a bit, from 8 to 13. Then Lime finally convinced my parents I wasn't suited for the games and I got to get into engineering. But the knowledge stuck, even if I can't do that myself. It's hard to imagine skinny, slightly awkward Aurelius as a career, but I guess that's why he dropped out of the academy again anyways. Cool, I reply, as Lime declares Nero the winner of the sparring match. The second it's officially over, Nero not only instantly releases Gale, but helps him to his feet, clapping him on the shoulder. Good match, Gale. Thanks, you too, Gale answers, brushing the dirt of his clothes. Lime gives them each a nod, and waves them to the side so the next pair can take up their spot. Aurelius waves Nero and Gale over to us, pulling 2 cans of soda from the cooler at his feet and chucking them to the other 2 once they are close enough. Don't you get bored watching us without doing anything? Gale asks. Nero grins, opening his drink and taking a few big gulps. Dude, they just love staring at us. He does a few ridiculous muscle poses which make me laugh but also cause my face to flush. I quickly down my drink to cover that up. Aurelius scoots closer to me so Nero can sit down next to him on the wall we're perched on, the slight hint of red to his cheeks not escaping my notice. Gale sits down on my other side and together we continue watching the training. The teens from 2 are falling over each other to prove themselves, seeing as Olive's there with them. She's the happiest I think I've ever seen her, joking around and beaming. I still heard her wake up screaming in the next room over last night, though, and she's still wearing her mentally disoriented bracelet. She's been refusing to take it off, even though here, there's no doctors forcing her to keep it on. Now Olive's up in front of the group, demonstrating an exercise with Lime. Something about using your opponent's strength against him, which I guess couldn't be illustrated better than with petite Olive and tall, muscular Lime. Nero's smiling, reaching across Aurelius to get another soda. It's so good to have Livy here. Just look at the cadets. They weren't this motivated since everything first started. The mountain's really crushing everyone's spirit. Speaking of Aurelius says there's another meeting about that later, so you might wanna go have a shower before hitting up command. Not again, I groan, burying my face in my hands. We've been here a week and I've already sat through 10 meetings on the subject of the mountain. It's always the same thing over and over and over. Today turns out to not be any different. As the afternoon wears on, talk keeps returning to a strategy that has been tried repeatedly, the storming of the entrances. I can see Lime's frustration building because so many variations of this plan have already failed, so many of her soldiers have been lost. Finally, she bursts out, the next person who suggests we take the entrances better have a brilliant way to do it, because you're going to be the one leading that mission. Today, after days of silent contemplation, Gale speaks up. Is it really so necessary that we take the nut? Or would it be enough to disable it? That would be a step in the right direction, says BT. What do you have in mind? Think of it as a wild dog den, Gale continues. You're not going to fight your way in. So you have two choices. Trap the dogs inside or flush them out. We've tried bombing the entrances, says Lime. They are set too far inside the stone for any real damage to be done. I wasn't thinking of that, says Gale. I was thinking of using the mountain. BT rises and joins Gale at the window, peering through his ill-fitting glasses. See. Running down the sides. Avalanche paths, says BT under his breath. It'd be tricky. We'd have to design the detonation sequence with great care, and once it's in motion, we couldn't hope to control it. We don't need to control it if we give up the idea that we have to possess the mountain, says Gale. Only shut it down. So you're suggesting we start avalanches and block the entrances, asks Lime. That's it, says Gale. Trap the enemy inside, cut off from supplies. Make it impossible for them to send out their hovercraft. While everyone considers the plan, Bobs flips through a stack of blueprints of the nut and frowns. You risk killing everyone inside. Look at the ventilation system. It's rudimentary at best. Nothing like what we have in 13. It depends entirely on pumping in air from the mountainsides. Block those vents and you'll suffocate whoever is trapped. They could still escape through the train tunnel to the square, says BT. Not if we blow it up, says Gale brusquely. The implications of what Gale is suggesting settle quietly around the room. You can see the reaction playing out on people's faces. The expressions range from pleasure to distress, from sorrow to satisfaction. The majority of the workers are citizens from 2, says BT neutrally. So what, says Gale. We'll never be able to trust them again. They should at least have a chance to surrender, says Lime. Well, that's a luxury we weren't given when they firebombed 12, but you're all so much cozier with the capital here, says Gale. By the look on Lime's face, I think she might shoot him, or at least take a swing. Nero actually does. Gale's on the floor, holding his jaw with a bewildered look, as Lime wrestles Nero away from him. Nero, get out of here. My mother is in there, he shouts back, struggling to get out of her grasp. Lime shoves him towards the door. That was an order, Soldier Hadley. Nero goes, but not without turning back to glare at Gale. I thought you could be trusted. There's an awkward silence when Nero's gone, and I clear my throat. President Cohen would be in favor of blocking the tunnels, I think. Yes, I think she would, Boggs agrees, sadness evident in his gaze. Gale gets to his feet, turning to me, looking shocked at his own idea now. I know he's frustrated and just wants to get back to Madge, but I can't let a suggestion like this slide. He addresses the room at large. It was just an idea. I'm against it, Olive says instantly. Lime sighs heavily. We'll let this sink in for now. We needn't bother General Cohen with what ifs and maybes at this point. Herein too, while they give Cohen the highest military title as de facto leader of the rebellion, no one refers to her as president. I find myself quite taken with that. Lime regards the room at large, then dismissed everyone. If there is no new ideas by the day after tomorrow, we shall revisit Soldier Hawthorne's suggestion. When Olive brushes past me and Gale on her way out of the room, she makes sure to ram him with her shoulder as hard as she can manage. Gale comes by my room a day later after dinner. The bruise on his jaw is a dark purple by now, but he doesn't seem to really care. He gives me a small smile. Think you can get Olive to talk to me for a minute? I shrug. Maybe. Why now, though? Think she's ready to forgive you? She holds a grudge like a champ, you know. I actually have more than sorry for her now, he replies. You know the reinforcements that came in from 13 this afternoon. Boggs has to brief their leaders, so he's distracted. Nero'll take us into the victor's village. He forgave you pretty easily, huh? I say. Gale frowns. Yeah, actually. But I'm not one to look a gift horse in the mouth, so. I sigh heavily. Well, he's the sweetest. I mean, he's so nice to me, and I killed his brother. You didn't. The mutts, and the nightlock. I cut Gale off by holding up my hand. I pushed him off the cornucopia. I don't want to talk about it, okay? Let's see if Olive's up to it. The Capitol didn't count Cato's death as my doing, and I don't think anyone but me actually does, but that doesn't stop it from being true. Go away. Olive calls as soon as I knock. I sigh and only pound against the door harder. Liv, it's Prim. Open the damn door, will you? Now Olive opens the door at my second knock, wrinkling her nose in distaste at the sight of Gale. Before she can slam the door, he's already wedged his shoulder against it. Realizing he won't let her close it, Olive crosses her arms and glares at him. What do you want? When he explains, her frown quickly turns to a smile. She nods and gives Gale a good-natured fist bump against the shoulder. Okay, fine, we're friends again. Now, when do we leave? Aurelius and Nero meet us outside, almost as excited as Olive at the prospect of going to see the victors. From what I've gathered, Aurelius's family has also taken to the village, as both sides of the conflict have accepted it as neutral territory. We're only halfway of the base when someone grabs my arm. I turn around to find myself faced with pillars. Where do you think you're going? He demands. I grin sheepishly. Victor's village. Don't tell on us. Please. If you let me come, he replies, and I agree. It's not like one more person sneaking out really makes a difference. We're almost at the victor's village when Olive suddenly frowns. Why is there soldiers at the fence? They're wearing 13 uniforms, Gale adds, and just like that, we all break into a run. There's about a dozen of 13 soldiers at the gates to the victor's village, Brutus, Inoberia and a few others on the inside. I push my way past the soldiers. What's going on here? The apparent leader of the group shoots me an annoyed look, then does a double take as he recognizes me. We're to bring them to our side. Is that so? Inoberia says pleasantly. Because just now, I could have sworn it sounded like you were threatening to kill us. Olive lets out a low whistle. Oh, rookie mistake. Never threaten a victor. We are to bring you to join the rebellion with all means necessary, the soldier says, unperturbed. I catch Pillars out of the corner of my eye, pulling out his camera. He's as mad as Cressida when it comes to the possibility of good footage. Inoberia raises an eyebrow. That still sounds like a threat. Take a step back so we can come out, why don't you? Why don't you just come out now, he challenges. The female victor smiles, but it's one of those smiles that's more a baring of teeth. Because the children are in here, and I think you're just stupid enough to try to get past us if you think you're close enough. And I'd hate to have to tear your pathetic little throat out. She gestures to her clothes. This is a new blouse. I don't want your blood all over it. The soldier hesitates, but then seems to decide there's no harm in doing what she asks if that'll get some of the victors outside. Before the gate is closed again, Inoberia sends Nero and Aurelius inside, to check on the defenses and especially the children. Then she hugs Olive, turning her back to the soldiers in the process. It's a clear sign that she refuses to view them as a danger, but I think it's another of those subtleties lost on the residents of 13. I use their distraction to hiss to Gale, do you have your communicuff? Call Boggs. He can't know of this, he just can't. But maybe, and Liam. Her first. Then I place myself between the soldiers and the contingent of victors as subtly as possible. You can't honestly think it's in the rebellion's best interest to attack them. 2 is vital to our efforts. Two is not fighting the way they should. The soldier, Vate his name tag reads, says. Brutus chuckles derisively. And how should we do things according to you, little boy? Vate bristles at be addressed in such a way. I quickly talk over anything he might say. You do realize the rebellion started in 2, 5, and 11. They let themselves be subdued, Vate say with more distaste than I feel this warrants. I cross my arms and put on my best imitation of Mum's I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed look. Well, you've been pretty subdued for 75 years. Look, my people are just hoping to live in peace. Another victor, I think she's called Gaia, says. But by all means, go ahead and give me a reason to kill you. Vate hesitates, but then raises his gun. You'd do better to give me a reason not to kill you. You have cooperated with Snow, and now you are refusing to fight him. I cooperated with Snow, I point out helpfully. Now I'm the face of this rebellion. Really, if your reasoning's that bad, you might as well shoot me. I grab his arm and draw the gun in my direction. Go on, I challenge. If you're so up for killing some victors, start by shooting me. Shoot me. His eyes are wide with surprise, but his gun remains pointed at me. I hold my arms out to my sides in mock invitation. Get on with it. Shoot me. Shoot me. Shoot me. I don't know what I expected, but him pulling the trigger certainly wasn't it. I'm spattered with blood before the bullet hits me. Inoberia staggers back, the bullet having passed straight through her. It's lodged in my shoulder now rather than my heart, where Vate was aiming. For a split second that feels like forever, absolute silence surrounds us. Then Inoberia goes down and Olive shrieks in fury. She flings herself at the shooter and knocks him off his feet, slamming his head against the ground over and over and over again. My hands are pressed against Inoberia's wound and I'm screaming now, too. For everyone to stop and someone to help me and at Inoberia to stay with me goddammit. Gale darts past me and I just have time to think, oh, good, he'll get Olive off that guy when he grabs the soldier next to her and starts pummeling him. Brutus and the other victors spring into action as well, and I think the soldiers are too shocked to properly react. This wasn't how their mission was supposed to go. Behind me, the gate opens again as more join the scuffle. Aurelius kneels down next to me, and I tell him how he can help. Inoberia's drifting in and out of consciousness by now. Between the victors and the other residents of 2 that sought refuge here, 13 soldiers are quickly disarmed and bound with their own handcuffs. I'm still doing my best on Inoberia's injuries when something starts pounding on my back. Get away from her. Get away from her. I throw a glance over my shoulder just long enough to see a small girl hammering her fists against me. I barely feel it, adrenaline rushing. I hardly even feel the bullet, so the kid can't hurt me. I shrug her off anyway. I'm helping her. Nero drags the girl back, but she just lunges forward again. You're killing her. Stop touching her. You'll kill her like you did Cato. Nero. Make her stop. That's when I realize who the girl is. Julius screams ebb into sobs after a while and I don't allow myself to look at her. Her words alone are enough to make my hands shake, and I really can't deal with that right now. By the time I'm satisfied I did all I can do, Boggs and Lime are running towards us. They stop dead at the sight before them. Boggs glances from one to the next, until he stops at Olive. Her lips split and her knuckles are bleeding and Gale still has to restrain her. What on earth happened here? Those clowns thought they could win us for their cause by threatening us. Brutus supplies. Boggs raises his eyebrows in disbelief. Let them get up. I want a proper explanation for such gross misconduct. Who the fuck thought it would be a good idea to shoot Beria? Lime asks, kneeling down next to me to check the other victor's vitals. I sigh. To be fair, she stepped in the way. He was trying to shoot me. What? Boggs grinds out. It doesn't even sound like a question, it sounds like a threat. I instinctively shrink back, even though his glare isn't leveled at me. Who? I don't think it would be wise to respond, but Olive's already pointing out Vate rather gleefully. The soldier has just about made it back to his feet when Boggs knocks him back down. I hear bone breaking as his fist makes contact with Vate's jaw, and by the soldier's howl of pain, it's pretty clear whose. Lime gets up and puts a hand on Boggs' shoulder. Really, Commander, now's not the time. She says it rather indulgently, and Aurelius lets out a low whistle. I do not want your dad mad at me ever. He's not my dad, I say weakly, but really, I agree with him. Gale grins down at me. Not yet, anyways. I let out another sigh. Can you all just shut up? And can we get Beria to a hospital? Like, right now. I've stabilized her, but that won't last. I do my best not to look down at my blood-stained hands still pressed to her abdomen. It's too familiar. Can we just get a move on? Underscore 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 underscore. Are you okay? Olive whispers as they wheel in Oberia down the hall. I nod shakily, vaguely aware that she's leading me somewhere. You look pretty shaken. I mean, you should be, but... You know when you're on the verge of a flashback and it doesn't happen but it doesn't go away either. I blurt out. Olive nods, helping me sit down on a gurney. Yeah. Do you want me to get someone? Gale. I shake my head. No, stay, please. Just, I don't know, tell me something. Anything. So I know it's you, and me, and here. I think Aurelius fancies Nero, Olive offers. I roll my eyes. No shit. I'm 13, not blind. Something else. Something interesting. Come on, you're supposed to distract me here. She thinks for a moment, then grins. I punched a bunch of 13 weenies and I can't even get in trouble cause Bobs did, too. Plus, I'm pretty sure Cohen's gonna deny that she sent them to kill the victors. So they will get punished for getting their asses handed to them. Is this the greatest day ever or what? You have weird priorities, I remark, but it's working. That comment is just so Olive, I'd be hard-pressed to forget it's her. She shrugs. Yeah, well, I just know what makes me happy. I wriggle my eyebrows at her. Speaking of, how are things with Johanna? Oh, shut up, Olive says, trying hard to look nonchalant. Her cheeks are burning, though. She clears her throat awkwardly. Why? Did she say something to you? Before I can say anything, she holds up her hand. Don't answer that. You just infected me with your, being 13ness. How rude of me, to be my own age of all things, I say, and Olive sighs overly dramatically. I know. But just this once, I'll forgive you. Just then Gale walks into the room. What do you think you're doing? You have a bullet in your shoulder. I've been looking for you everywhere. Come on, you're seeing a doctor right now. You're just afraid Boggs gonna blame you if I don't, I say, but get up anyway. Gale raises his eyebrows at me. Well, yeah. He did leave me in charge, after a. Don't see why he wouldn't put me in charge. I'm a very responsible person, Olive puts in. I give her an incredulous look. You lost your shit on a bunch of armed soldiers. Responsibly agrees Olive. Plus, you yelled at someone to shoot you until they did. I'm pretty sure that's worse. All color drains from my face. For the first time that day, I'm truly, utterly terrified. He's gonna tell Mum on me, isn't he? Once my shoulder is taken care of, we sit down and wait for news on Inoberia. It's not all too long before a doctor steps out and tells us that we can see her. Gale rather waits outside, but Olive and I head right in. Inoberia's propped up against a few pillows and looks well enough, really. Hey, I say, because I don't really know what else to say. Thank you. For saving my life and all. Inoberia scoffs. Don't flatter yourself. It was a reflex. I'm just not into people shooting little kids. Thanks for having good reflexes. I look to Olive for help, but she doesn't seem to find anything wrong with the exchange. Instead, she plops down on the edge of Inoberia's bed. So, how are you, Beria? Well enough, she says, face softening now that she's no longer looking at me. Lime insisted I stay the night, but really, I'm fine. She smiles. Now tell me what happened to those assholes from 13. I'll just leave, then, shall I? Neither of them reacts to that, so I wait for a few more seconds and then go back out to Gale. He raises his eyebrows at me. That was quick. Yeah. I shrug. I don't really get barrier, to be honest. Fair enough, Gale replies. So, should we head back to the base? Nero'll bring his sister to see Inobaria and then he'll take Olive home, so we don't have to wait if you don't want to. Yeah, let's head out. I really don't think I could deal with seeing Julia again today. Underscore 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 underscore. How are you? Boggs asks the second he sees me, crouching down slightly so he's at my eye level, worry clear on his face. I wave him off, slightly embarrassed. I'm fine. I barely got hurt. Don't worry, okay. What'll happen now? He sighs, running his hand over his face tiredly. It's all a huge mess. The president had me arrest them all, and now she's pushing to crush the mountain and get you back to 13. So she's saying she didn't have anything to do with that, I note. Does that mean we're going with Gale's idea? Again, Boggs sighs. I'm afraid so. They are preparing now. Underscore 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 underscore. By evening, Olive and I are suited up in our propos outfits, she with her axe and I with an earpiece that connects me to Haymitch in 13, just in case a good opportunity for a propos arises. We wait on the roof of the Justice building with a clear view of our target. Our hoverplanes are initially ignored by the commanders in the mountain, because in the past they've been little more trouble than flies buzzing around a honeypot. But after 2 rounds of bombings in the higher elevations of the mountain, the planes have their attention. By the time the capital's anti-aircraft weapons begin to fire, it's already too late. Gale's plan exceeds anyone's expectations. BT was right about being unable to control the avalanches once they'd been set in motion. The mountainsides are naturally unstable, but weakened by the explosions, they seem almost fluid. Whole sections of the mountain collapse before our eyes, obliterating any sign that human beings have ever set foot on the place. We stand speechless, tiny and insignificant, as waves of stone thunder down the mountain, burying the entrances under tons of rock, raising a cloud of dirt and debris that blackens the sky, turning the mountain into a tomb. I imagine the hell inside the mountain. Sirens wailing, lights flickering into darkness, stone dust choking the air. The shrieks of panicked, trapped beings stumbling madly for a way out, only to find the entrances, the launch pad, the ventilation shafts themselves clogged with earth and rock trying to force its way in. Live wires flung free, fires breaking out, rubble making a familiar path a maze. People slamming, shoving, scrambling like ants as the hill presses in, threatening to crush their fragile shells. The day my father died comes back to me at full force. I feel as helpless as I did when I was waiting for Katniss to come collect me, the way she promised she would if the sirens ever sounded. The elevators were screeching, burning up and down their cables as they vomited smoke-blackened miners into the light of day. With each group came cries of relief, relatives diving under the rope to lead off their husbands, wives, children, parents, siblings. We stood in the freezing air as the afternoon turned overcast, a light snow dusted the earth. The elevators moved more slowly now and disgorged fewer beings. I knelt on the ground and pressed my hands into the cinders, wanting so badly to pull my father free. If there's a more helpless feeling than trying to reach someone you love who's trapped underground, I don't know it. The wounded. The bodies. The waiting through the night. Blankets put around your shoulders by strangers. A mug of something hot that you don't drink. And then finally, at dawn, the grieved expression on the face of the mine captain that could only mean one thing. What did we just do? Gale's hand is clamped around my uninjured shoulder, and I'm not sure whether he's holding up me or himself. Haymitch's voice in my ear is so harried that I think he must have been calling my name for a while. Prim. Can you hear me? Goddamit, kid, talk to me. I'm here, I say tonelessly. Get inside. Just in case the capital tries to retaliate with what's left of its air force, he instructs. I do what he tells me, sitting down on the floor as soon as I am inside. Olive and Nero are staring out of the window side by side, unmoving, their hands clasped tightly together. We might be killing his mother at this very moment. I turn my face away. Boggs crouches down beside me, his skin pale in the shadows. We didn't bomb the train tunnel, you know. Some of them will probably get out. And then we'll shoot them when they show their faces. I ask. Only if we have to, he answers. We could send in trains ourselves. Help evacuate the wounded, I say. No. It was decided to leave the tunnel in their hands. That way they can use all the tracks to bring people out, says Boggs. He brushes a stray strand of hair out of my face. You know we had no other choice. That doesn't make me feel any better, I say. Boggs nods. Mine neither. He gets up. You're cold. I'll see if I can find a blanket. He goes before I can protest. I don't want a blanket, even if the marble continues to leach my body heat. How you doing, sweetheart? Mitch asks. I shrugs before I remember he can't see me. Better than those people in the mountain. He falls silent after that, and Boggs soon returns. He wraps a blanket around my shoulders and then sits down next to me, putting his arm around me. I lean into him gratefully. Aren't you supposed to be outside? He's silent for just a moment too long before replying, Lime's got it under control. I feel like I should protest that he thinks I need coddling, but I don't want him to take me by my word and leave, so I say nothing. I'm almost dozing off when suddenly, Boggs shifts out from under me. I'm wide awake instantly, yelling after him. What's going on? Olive disappeared, he replies. As did Cressida and her team. I catch up to him quickly. Why would they do that? We told her she could go once the situation was more under control, Boggs replies, still walking so briskly I have to jog to keep up. Apparently waiting is not in her vocabulary. But the people here love her, I argue. She's going to be fine. Right. Boggs gives me an incredulous look. The rebels love her. There's no saying what loyalists might do to her. They think she's a traitor. I stop dead once we make it outside. There's smoke billowing, gunshots sounding and wounded people everywhere. I gasp for breath and try to stay calm. So how the hell are we even going to find her in this mess? You are going back inside right now, Boggs says, just as Olive's voice booms across the square. People of District 2, this is Olivine Cantwell speaking. I ask you to lay your weapons down now. We do not have a conflict with the other districts, but for the one Snow made. He's a coward who'd have others fight his battle and works with poison. Is that really the man you want to align yourselves with? Where is she? Boggs mutters just as Aurelius pops up next to us. There's only 3 places where she'd have good enough reception. Steps of the Justice Building, right in front of the mountain, and inside Command. Inside is safe, so we can definitely rule that out, and we're standing on the steps of the Justice Building. Boggs groans. Oh, for fuck's sake. And just like that, we're all running. Tell me why I shouldn't just shoot you, you traitor. Someone's gotten close enough to Olive for her mic to pick up their voice properly, which isn't good at all. But I can hear the unwavering self-confidence in Olive's voice, though. Because that's what Snow would want you to do. And we're not slaves, especially not his. We're bringing him down. I'm not a traitor. But you. I'm doing what's best for our district. Don't be a coward. Oh my God, is she antagonizing someone with a gun? I choke out. Aurelius laughs. Well, look who's talking. We still have a long way to go to get to her, but suddenly the screens all around flicker to life. Olive's facing off with a man who has blood running down his face and his gun firmly pointed at her. All around us, the fighting has stopped. I freeze, too, transfixed by the nearest screen. I am now coward, he says quietly. Olive holds out her hand to him. Prove it, then. And just like that, he flips the gun in his grip and hands it to Olive, but first. She smiles and lays it on the ground between them. We shouldn't fight each other when we have Snow to bring down. Brother. And then they are embracing each other, and the eerie silence that fell over the square moments before is replaced by roaring applause. We make our way through the crowd, looking up at the screens every now and again to make sure Olive is still okay. She's helping the injured evacuate by now, the camera still following her every move. Bob seems calmer now that there's no immediate danger anymore, and Aurelius stops to chat to someone I don't know. Olive's has the decency, or maybe it's more a survival instinct, to look sheepish when Bob's reaches her. He looks at the people around us, and sighs. Later he tells Olive simply, and then goes to help us well. I take out my medikit and set to work myself. Soon, Gail comes towards me, carrying a soot and blood-covered woman. Prim. Some help here. I'm okay, she protests weakly, but lets me check her out while Gail snorts like hell. Your bones showing on your left arm. To me, he adds she wouldn't get medical help until she helped get everyone out of the train. With her freaking bone sticking out. The woman half scowls, half smiles. Well, I am right-handed, it was no problem. Something's familiar about her, but I can't put my finger on it. I draw air in sharply as I take a proper look at her arm. This'll hurt pretty badly, I warn her as I asks what tools I'll need. We could take you to the hospital instead. They have painkillers and surgeons and stuff. They'll be busy with those with severe injuries, she admonishes. Go on, girl, no point in waiting. Mom. She looks up at the voice, her face splitting into a huge grin. Nero. Pumpkin. You're okay. Pumpkin. I mouth at Gale as Nero and his mother embrace, barely keeping in a snicker. Gale only shrugs, but I can tell he's suppressing a laugh himself. Nero gently untangles himself from his mother and gestures to us. Gale, Prim, my mum, Cersei. Mum, those are my friends. Gale Hawthorne, and I think you'll recognize Primrose Everdeen. Cersei gives me a once-over, eyebrows raised in surprise, and then nods. You are very tiny in person, dear. So people keep telling me, I reply weakly. Underscore 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 underscore. What were you thinking? Bob says as soon as we are all inside, out of sight of the people hailing Olive as some sort of hero. Before she can respond, he turns to the camera team. And you? Cressida, I thought you had more sense than that. You did, she asks, genuinely astonished as far as I can tell. Really? Have you met me? I laugh, which only makes Bobs glare at me as well. Olive clears her throat. It worked, didn't it? Well, yes, Bobs admits testily. But you had no way of knowing that. You could have been injured, maimed, killed, any number of things. Olive nods. Well, yeah. I looked at the odds and all. I figured, like, it would either work out or I'd die. That's a win-win situation if I've ever seen one. Her smile is at odds with her statement. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to wash my hands. She wiggles her blood-stained fingers in front of us. Horribly unsanitary, or so Mrs. E tells me. You needed my mum to tell you other people's blood was unhygienic. I chirp as I follow her. I'm not letting her out of my sight after a comment like that. Underscore 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 underscore. Only once we are all on a hovercraft back to 13 do I allow myself to drift off. Everyone is cramped into a relatively small space, so I'm sure Olive will be okay. I'm not even sure she really meant what she said, anyway, she has a very dark humor. And I know a thing or two about wishing to be dead, yet here I still am. Either way, I make sure to sit next to her, just in case she wants to talk. You can wake me up if you get bored, I tell her, and then settle with my head against her shoulder to catch some shut-eye. She ends up only waking me when we're already about to land. I stretch my sore muscles, happy to be back and see everyone again. Boggs checks his communicuff. We're expected to head to the hospital first thing, make sure no lasting harm was done. We just were to the hospital, Olive says, and Gale rolls his eyes. It's almost as if Cohen doesn't trust others. Weird. Tough, I'd rather have some time with my loved ones. I dutifully follow Boggs to the hospital. I've disobeyed enough orders lately. I guess I should have expected Mum to wait there for us, anyways. A boy of about 5 jumps from her lap and runs at Boggs, who picks him up and spins him around. I have a vague memory of seeing them together in the cafeteria. I guess he's his son. I'm also guessing his mother isn't in the picture with the eyes my mother and Boggs are making at each other. Gross. My mum hugs me, peppering my face with kisses and checking me for obvious injuries before turning to Olive and repeating the process, minus all the kissing. Boggs's little boy is beaming down at me from his father's arms. We haven't met yet. Really met. But I know all about you. You're Prim. You got me, I say with a smile, playfully booping his nose, feeling horrible that I don't even know his name when he's giving me a look that borders on adoration, almost the way Posey looks at her brothers. Boggs smiles as well, coming to my rescue without his son noticing. Prim's gotta see a doctor, Bane. Make sure she has no itches. Yeah, Bane, I say, but after that, what do you say we play a game together? So, how were things here while I was gone? I ask as my mother closes the exam room door behind herself. She gives me a small smile. Pretty good. I was allowed to see Katniss a few times. Really? Plutarch gave me sporadic updates on my sister in 2, but he neglected to mention that. How is she? How did she react? Do you think I'll get to see her? What did she say? Did you talk about me? Mum raises her hand to stop me, still smiling. In my excitement, I didn't give her a chance to answer a single question before barging on. She's much better, but she still can't really tell what actually happened and what the Capitol made her think. She doesn't quite know what to make of you. I think she's starting to believe me that you're actually you. It's just that her brain doesn't let her. I swallow hard. So she still wants to kill me. She hasn't said anything like that for a while, my mother says, and I smile, feeling pathetic a moment later. My own sister not wanting to kill me shouldn't be this big a thing. I hate Snow. I hate him so much. Mum pulls me into a hug, able to tell what I'm thinking, or at least the general feeling. She's getting better. We'll be okay. As if to disprove that sentiment, Olive starts screaming outside. It's unintelligible at first, but when Mum wrenches the door open, I can make out words. I want to be dead. If this is better, I want to be dead. The door to the other exam room is open, and within the few seconds it takes us to get there, Olive's screaming has ebbed into sobs. She's in the middle of a mess of shattered glass, cowering on the ground. Johanna's arms are wrapped around her as the victor whispers beseechingly. A particularly large shard is covered in blood and there's more slowly pooling next to the 2 women. A pale, shaken doctor looks from them to us. I only told her she could take that bracelet off. Her psychival checks out. Mother takes him by the arm and leads him out of the room, not ungently. I follow uncertainly. But I think Joe might be more help right now than I would. We wait outside in total silence. I wring my hands nervously but don't dare to go back into the hospital room for fear of making it worse. After what feels like an eternity but can't have been more than a few minutes, Johanna opens the door a crack and gestures for me to come in. The doctor protests but quickly withers under Joe's glare. It's Everdeen or no one. Your call. Olive is worryingly pale, but forces a small smile at the sight of me. Don't look at me like that, Prim. I'm perfectly fine. You sliced open your fucking arm, Johanna says, her voice not as detached as I've become used to. Olive attempts to wave her off but lacks the energy to raise her hand. Joe sits down next to Olive, who immediately burrows against her. Only a little bit, Joe. Only a little bit. Let me see, then I say, taking Olive's hand in my own and unwrapping the bandage Joe must have put on her. I cast another worried look at Olive. You need to stay awake for me, Liv, okay? Joe, can you go get me some donor blood? No, Olive whines, clinging on to Johanna. You can't leave me. You have to stay. You just tried to die on me, Johanna admonishes, gently untangling herself from Olive. I'll be back in a second, okay? Just do whatever Dean says. I'll only be a second, love. Okay. Okay. Olive's voice is barely even a whisper. Underscore 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 underscore. I'm still forced to go to command as soon as I'm done with Olive. They tried to make her go to psych again, but Johanna refuses to let them take her, and Bob's told the doctors to drop it. You're late, Coin say when I enter the room. I'm sure she knows exactly what happened and is just being spiteful, so I just shrug. Two can play that game. Yeah, well, I thought I maybe shouldn't let Olive bleed out. I'll run that by you first next time. She waves me off imperiously. Sit down, soldier, and stop wasting everyone's time. What happened? Gale hisses as I sit down next to him. I shake my head to indicate we'll talk later. Joe's with her. That seems to relax him somewhat, and we both turn our attention to Coin. She starts off with a short recap of the events in 2, leaving out her soldiers attacking the victors, then compliments us on taking the district before asking for further suggestions on how to proceed. The common consensus is that we should take time to regroup, now that 2 has fallen in with us. Then, Bobs clears his throat. I think we should make another attempt to find the Kentwells. And Gloss Adlington. He pauses briefly, then presses on. It would be a sign of unity among the Disturts and further demoralize the capital's forces. And possibly stabilize Olive's mental status, goes unspoken. Plutarch chimes in. My contacts are active again. I think it could be done. At the skeptic look Coin gives him, he only smiles. And we believe they might be holding Peter Mellick in the same facility. Coin purses her lips, half distaste, half thought. Finally, she nods. The boy will be our priority. He always was a good speaker. Haymitch leads me out of command and along a few corridors. You realize what she's doing, don't you? I shrug. Get Peter to be her spokesperson because I'm really bad at it. Well, yes, basically. Haymitch scowls at me and sighs heavily. But that's not it. She wants you out of the picture. Once Snow's gone, there will be a new government. And what do you think who people will look to for guidance? They'll be waiting to see who you'll back for president. And that wouldn't be Coin. I'm beginning to understand where this is going. When she sent us to 2, she didn't think we'd make it back, did she? Hoped you wouldn't. Haymitch agrees. We all thought Olive was going to get herself killed, running into the field like that. It's pure luck the people reacted that way. If she gets Peter, you're completely useless to her. So? It's not like we can change that. It's not like we can just abandon Peter to the capital. There is a pause that makes my insides freeze. I stop dead in my tracks and stare at Haymitch, incredulous. He looks like his words pain him. They've had him for over a year. There's no saying what they've done to him. If he's even still Peter. If he's like Katniss, you mean? I challenge. He doesn't deny it. It took me 24 years to get a kid out alive. I'm not watching you burn yourself down for others now. I sneer at him to keep the tears from falling. Haven't you heard? I'm the girl on fire. He doesn't follow me when I walk away. Underscore 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 underscore. I go to the hospital, wanting to tell Olive that she'll get her parents back. The mission is happening, and I refuse to see that as a bad thing. Coin has wanted me gone long enough as it is. Peter won't change that. And even if it were like that, I wouldn't care. He needs to be rescued, he deserves at least a chance at a normal life. I'd rather die than live with the knowledge I abandoned him again. Olive's asleep when I reach the hospital, curled up in Johanna's arms. The victor's faces are so soft in sleep and I step closer without thinking about it. They look peaceful like that, almost as if nothing was wrong in the world. The heavy bandages on Olive's arm and the morphling drip attached to Joe's, not actually hers, I'm guessing, speak a different language, of course. but I ignore that as I lay down on the bed next to theirs, allowing myself to revel in the false sense of security they are exuding. It doesn't take long for me to fall asleep. When I wake up again, Olive's staring at me across the gap between the hospital beds. "You hurt or spying on me?" "Neither," I say with a huge yawn. "I came to tell you there's another rescue attempt. You looked so peaceful I decided to let you sleep." "Rescue attempt? My parents, you mean?" I nod. "They are still planning, though, I don't know when it'll actually happen." Just then, the door is opened and our conversation cut off. Olive swiftly detaches her morphling drip from Johanna and rams it back into her own arm without so much as wincing, Johanna only stirring slightly in her sleep. The doctor doesn't seem to notice, too preoccupied with my presence. "You're not supposed to be here. They're looking for you, you know. Your sister's been asking to see you." "She has?" It's barely a whisper and I don't wait for an answer anyways, racing along corridors and downstairs to get to her. "She wants to see me. She really wants to see me." I stop just short of flinging her door open and barging in, instead going next door into the observation room. Plutarch looks up from a clipboard and smiles at me. "Ah, you're here, wonderful. We'll just let you head on in, Primrose. She did well with all the others so far." "All the others?" I echo. "She didn't do anywhere near well with Delly, and as far as I'd heard, only my mother had been to see her." Plutarch only nods. Yes, particularly Miss Undersea and Effie Trinket. She has been asking for Johanna Mason, too, but we don't think that would be advisable. I'm guessing that's because their only connection is the capital prison, but I don't want to waste time with questions." I wipe my sweaty hands on my trousers. "I'll just go in, then, shall I?" My mouth is dry and my heart's pounding like crazy, but I'm excited, too. She wants to see me. There's restraints on her arms still, but she isn't fighting them this time. I smile weakly as I stop right in front of her bed. "Hey, Katniss." "Hello," she says wearily, as if she's as uncertain as I am what to say or do next. I shuffle awkwardly, wiping my hands on my clothes again. "So, you wanted to talk?" She shrugs, chewing on her lower lip. "Look at you, mostly." Her grey eyes are more sad than angry, and I don't know whether I should be glad. "You're still just a little kid, aren't you?" Now it's at me to shrug helplessly as she continues to scrutinize me. "Mum says it's really you. So do Effie and Madge." She motions for me to step closer and, with a furtive glance at the two-way mirror, I do. Katniss grabs my wrist and turns the inside of my arm up for her inspection. Her grip is too tight, so tight it hurts, but I don't pull away. She studies the crescent shape marks, the ones that refuse to fade anymore. "There's no point in making a mark do that." "I don't think there is, at least. Unless that's exactly the point." Confusing wars with something I can't place and her grip tightens further. I hiss in pain and she lets go as if burned, lips moving soundlessly. "Primrose, back out here, please," Plutarch's voice tells me. I walk away slowly, mumbling a "bye, Katniss, good to see you" as I do. I'm almost at the door when she speaks again. She sounds as if she's unsure of the words, but she's very nearly smiling. "Tuck your shirt in." My hand automatically goes up to do it, tears pooling in my eyes as I turn back to smile at her. Quack. The next few days bring a nice respite, even though there's a flurry of activity. For once, it's not strategy and war talk, though. Instead, everyone's busy planning Finnick and Annie's wedding. The differences between the capital and 13 are thrown into sharp relief by the event. When Coin says wedding, she means two people signing a piece of paper and being assigned a new compartment. Plutarch means hundreds of people dressed in finery at a 3-day celebration. It's amusing to watch them haggle over the details. Plutarch has to fight for every guest, every musical note. After Coin vetoes a dinner, entertainment, and alcohol, Plutarch yells, "What's the point of the propo if no one's having any fun?" It's hard to put a game maker on a budget. But even a quiet celebration causes a stir in 13, where they seem to have no holidays at all. When it's announced that children are wanted to sing District 4's wedding song, practically every kid shows up. There's no shortage of volunteers to help make decorations. In the dining hall, people chat excitedly about the event. Maybe it's more than the festivities. Maybe it's that we are all so starved for something good to happen that we want to be part of it. It would explain why, when Plutarch has a fit over what the bride will wear, I volunteer to take Annie back to my house in 12, where I have an abundance of clothes. They'll be the wrong size, of course, but Octavia was hoping to become a stylist one day, is confident she'll manage to make something work. So Annie, Effie, my prep team, and I are loaded into a hovercraft to 12. I've never really been around Annie before, but the people who call her mad are exaggerating. Sure, she's unstable, but after all she's been through, who wouldn't be? We all are quiet when we enter my house. When I open the closet, the silence feels even heavier because Cinna's presence is so strong in the flow of the fabrics. Then Octavia drops to her knees, rubs the hem of a skirt against her cheek, and bursts into tears. It's been so long, she gasps, since I've seen anything pretty. It's Effie who brings us out of it, clasping her hands together and smiling. All right, let's get to it, then. We riffle through my clothes as well as Mum's, knowing that Katniss's won't yield anything fitting the occasion. Flavius and Venia hold this and that up to Annie while Octavia takes measurements and makes assessments. If we take the skirt off of that one, we might be able to make it work with the blouse with the bell sleeves. Effie and I go pick up a suit for Finnick from Haymitch's house and then busy ourselves with picking out items to distribute among the other guests. The all grey of 13 just isn't festive, and certainly not propo material. So every little blot of colour will help, really. Despite reservations on Cohen's side that it's too extravagant, and on Plutarch's side that it's too drab, the wedding is a smash hit. The 300 lucky guests culled from 13 and the many refugees mostly wear their everyday clothes, with the few additions we brought back. The decorations are made from autumn foliage, the music is provided by a choir of children, who have boaties or hairbands Octavia made from spare material while altering the clothes, and they are accompanied by the lone fiddler who made it out of 12 with his instrument. So it's simple, frugal by the capital's standards. It doesn't matter because nothing can compete with the beauty of the couple. It isn't about their borrowed finery, although the clothes are striking. Octavia truly outdid herself. Who can look past the radiant faces of two people for whom this day was once a virtual impossibility? Dalton from 10 conducts the ceremony, since it's similar to the one used in his district. But there are unique touches of District 4. A net woven from long grass that covers the couple during their vows, the touching of each other's lips with salt water, and the ancient wedding song, which likens marriage to a sea voyage. After the kiss that seals the union, the cheers, and a toast with apple cider, the fiddler strikes up a tune that turns every head from 12. We may have been the smallest, poorest district in Panem, but we know how to dance. Nothing has been officially scheduled at this point, but Plutarch, who's calling the propo from the control room, must have his fingers crossed. Sure enough, Greasy SAE grabs Tafton by the hand and pulls him into the center of the floor and faces off with him. People pour in to join them, forming two long lines. I hold my hand out to Rory and we join the others. And the dancing begins. It's exhilarating, nothing this carefree has happened in far too long. We teach the steps to those from 13 and the other districts. Olive gets the hang of it very quickly and, under much grumbling, Johanna follows her onto the dance floor. The room is filled with laughter, people spinning around and around. Insisting on a special number for the bride and groom. Joining hands to make a giant, spinning circle where people show off their footwork. This could go on all night if not for the last event planned in Plutarch's propo. One I hadn't heard about, but then it was meant to be a surprise. 4 people wheel out a huge wedding cake from a side room. Most of the guests back up, making way for this rarity, this dazzling creation with blue-green, white-tipped icing waves swimming with fish and sailboats, seals and sea flowers. It's utterly beautiful, and Ryan Tafton can't escape the people wanting to compliment them. Once the celebration is over, Mum and I get to go see Katniss again. The conversation is somewhat stiff, but I'm in high spirits and Katniss relaxes more and more with every passing second. Then Haymitch asks me out of the room. What's wrong? I ask. He smiles. Nothing, for once. They got Peter out. It takes me a moment to even understand what he's telling me. What? I didn't even know, where is he? Well, secret mission and all. Haymitch replies with a shrug. Even though I have to jog to keep up with Haymitch's much longer strides, I still think we could be moving faster. Is he okay? Did you see him? What about Olive's parents? Can't you shut up for 2 minutes? Haymitch says it with a smile, though. They got the Cantwells and Gloss out, too. I don't know much else. I came to get you as soon as they told me. Anyone tell the Mellocks yet? I ask. Haymitch rolls his eyes at that. Course we did, kid, we're not idiots. Effie is informing them right about now. I don't ask anything else for the rest of the way, too excited to even sort out any more questions. My heart's in my throat by the time we reach the hospital. Taking a deep breath, I push open the door. The curtains are pulled closed on 3 cubicles, and when a nurse spots me, he indicates the one at the end of the room. Haymitch and I exchange a quick look before walking over. I pull back the curtain and there he is. Peter, I say, and it comes out as almost a sob. He looks up, a smile breaking across his face. The doctor squeezes his hand quickly before stepping away with a nod. I'll give you a minute. Prim. Haymitch. His voice is as warm as I remember it, but he is so incredibly pale, as if he hasn't seen the sun in months. The likelihood of that being true breaks my heart. I step up to his bed, reaching out slowly, half afraid he'll disappear if I touch him. He meets my hand halfway, pulling me closer with a gentle tug. Oh, it's so good to see you, Prim. Without further ado, I fall into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I feel the bed slightly dip as Haymitch sits down on its edge. So, you're really alive, boy. We had no idea. Peter pets my hair absent-mindedly. Yeah, well, that was the plan, wasn't it? Stay alive. Plans have a tendency of failing, Haymitch remarks. Or turning bad. You okay? What did they do to you? I shoot up so fast I almost knock my head into Peter's chin. You don't have to answer that. I glare at Haymitch. Don't ask something like that. Prim, it's okay, Peter soothes. They'll want to know anyways, they brought me into their district and all. I'd rather tell you than them. If you're sure. Even though I'm not sure I want to hear it. But if he wants to get it out, I'll listen. Of course I'll listen. And so I do. I take in every word of what misery his life has been this past year and a half. How they took him from the games, barely alive, and fixed him back up. A bargaining chip for Crane's life. How Snow traipsed him around his most loyal, most needed cronies. How he was given to them as an incentive or a reward. Kept in the rooms beneath the presidential mansion, alone save for Lavinia and Darius, both a respite from the solitude and yet just there to keep him doing what Snow demanded. Their lives in his hand. How they moved him from one prison to another after the Quell, a device to further torture and manipulate Madge and Katniss. How they made him watch the bombing of 12 over and over and over. How he was moved again, and heard of the rescue only days later. He talks and talks, his voice steady, but there's tears streaming down his face. I hold his hand and force my own tears away. I have to keep it together, that's the least I can do for him. Once he stops, a heavy silence descends on the room. It's broken by someone clearing their throat. We all look up to see Effie standing there somewhat uncertainly. I asked your brothers to wait outside for a moment so I could check in. Are you up to seeing them? Effie, his voice breaks and he stretches his arms out to her like a child. She rocks him as he sobs, as he whimpers, I could hear you, I could hear, I couldn't do anything, but I could always hear you scream. I'll go tell them you need a few more minutes, Haymitch mutters and gets up abruptly, looking like he might be sick any second. Neither Effie nor Peter react, so I don't even bother making excuses as I leave them alone. I feel like an intruder. I walk past the other cubicle, aware of the sobbing behind the curtain. Kashmir, I think. I keep walking, pausing in front of the last curtain. I can't knock or anything, so I softly call for my friend Olive. Come on in, Prim, she replies almost instantly. I pull aside the curtain and there she is, beaming at me from where she's nestled against her mother while a doctor and 2 nurses are checking both her parents over. Especially her father looks rather worse for wear, but they are both conscious and attentive, so I assume there's no lasting damage. I glance over my shoulder towards the other beds and then pull the curtain closed again. Olive's face darkens briefly. They are voxed gloss. But then that information is passed over in favor of her introducing me to her parents. I'd shake your hand, but, well, you see the problem. Her father, Ramus, says good-naturedly, indicating the various tubes the doctor is currently busy jamming into his arms. Her mother, Domitia, does shake my hand. Pleasure to finally meet you, dear. It's about time someone brought this whole system tumbling down. I didn't do much, really, I say, flushing bright red. Olive nods, sighing heavily before shooting me a grin. She really didn't, Mum. I stick out my tongue at her, making a bit of small talk before I excuse myself to check on the Mellocs. I don't understand. My words hang in the air, unacknowledged and unimportant. And maybe I should have seen this coming, maybe I'm still naive, deep down, even after everything that has happened, everything that has been done to me, because I really, truly didn't think it would come to this. That she would do this. Olive's beaming. She wanted this, was ready to fight tooth and nail for it. Kashmir looks determined, yet slightly deranged. She wants vengeance, for all the things they did over the years, but most of all for Gloss. Johanna shouldn't be here, if you ask me, and she has no business being anywhere near fighting. Coin gave her the all-clear for training anyway. I'm the only one upset at this turn of events. Well, me and Finnick, though his disappointment stems from not being allowed even the chance of going to the capital. I guess Coin thinks he can be twisted into her mouthpiece if Peter doesn't comply or proves useless. Peter's not yet met her, but I don't think she's out of the loop where he's concerned. He refuses to speak to the psychologists and has horrible night terrors. Effie seems to soothe him some, but the nurses don't like having her in the hospital. Or, well, they say they don't. I suspect Coin's behind this because they claim it's about not upsetting him. Yet he does get to see Katniss, which actually tends to upset him. Her condition worsened again now that she has even more to confuse her. She thought Peter was a hallucination in the capital. They still have the two together often, no matter that it ends with Katniss in hysterics, clawing at her skin and goes on about mutts while Peter covers his ears and sings to himself to drown this out more often than not. Coin's clearly trying to play 13's savior narrative to Peter. It's only training, Coin tells me with a reassuring smile that freezes my insides. We'll have to see if you'll be in a state to go to the capital once the time rolls around. Now, there is no doubt in my mind that I will be participating in the storm on the capital. Finnick's on his feet, slamming a hand down on the table. You'll let the kid train but not me. The smile looks more genuine as she turns it to him. The Mockingjay keeps up morale, and she has shown considerable potential in the field on multiple occasions. Lucking my way through a few districts while ignoring orders is apparently worthy credentials, now. Besides, we do not make a habit of sending newlyweds into the field. We value family here, especially young families. The mention of Annie effectively shuts him up and he takes his seat with a mumble that might have been an apology. I look to Haymitch for help. His eyes are closed and his fingers pinching the bridge of his nose. I saw him sit like that before. On a screen, when his tribute lit a fire too close to the careers after actually making it for over a week. Claudius Templar Smith laughed at the girl's rookie mistake. There was nothing Haymitch could do for her. I resign myself to going. Underscore 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 underscore. I'm in a group with the youngest kids, all of them actually older than me. They stick Johanna with me, too. She fumes at this until it becomes clear they're in better condition than she is. I'm somewhere in the middle of the field for most things, but my muscles ache more and more with each passing minute. I'm pushing past all my limits not because I want to pass assessments, but because I'm sure I will either way and I need all the help I can get. We cross paths with other groups of trainees sometimes and their regiment is even more brutal. One day when we come out for track, the already capital-approved group is in the middle of their training. They are loaded with weapons and supplies so much that I don't think I could even move and they sink down into the mud past their ankles with each step. Next to me, Joe has turned absolutely ashen at the sight of the rain. Our trainer, Soldier York, indicates for us to get on the track. I hang back, trying to think of something to say to Johanna, when she's already stomping into the mud. She makes it about 10 yards before Olive reaches her backpack abandoned on the track. She pulls her back under the roof, even as her own trainer yells to get her ass back on that track this second. Olive ignores him and cups Johanna's face in her hands. You don't have to, Joe. Yeah, Johanna says, her voice catching. I do. She takes a deep breath. Crazy girl living in the hospital is bad enough. Can't stand a little drizzle, too. Would you take that soldier to the capital? I decide to leg it before they notice I'm still listening. Johanna catches up with me about halfway through my second lap. When I come home to our compartment for the night, Olive is packing up her stuff. You moving out? Yeah, she says, but doesn't elaborate. I hand her one of her shirts. Your parents out of hospital, then? That gets me a smile. They are. But I'm just moving across the hall. I'm rooming with Joe. They won't let her live alone. Underscore 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 underscore. They cut my visiting privileges to both Peter and Katniss. Rory turns 14 and is allowed into proper training, which makes me sick to my stomach. I tell him to do as badly as he believably can. Gale apparently told him the same thing already. I'm informed we'll be headed to the capital in a fortnight. I throw myself into training with a vengeance. Eat, live, and breathe the workouts, drills, weapons practice, lectures on tactics. A handful of us are moved into an additional class that gives me hope I may be a contender for the actual war. The soldiers simply call it the block, but the tattoo on my arm lists it as SSC, short for Simulated Street Combat. Deep in 13, they've built an artificial capital city block. The instructor breaks us into squads of 8 and we attempt to carry out missions, gaining a position, destroying a target, searching a home, as if we were really fighting our way through the capital. The thing's rigged so that everything that can go wrong for you does. A false step triggers a landmine, a sniper appears on a rooftop, your gun jams, a crying child leads you into an ambush, your squadron leader, who's just a voice on the program, gets hit by a mortar and you have to figure out what to do without orders. Part of you knows it's fake and that they're not going to kill you. If you set off a landmine, you hear the explosion and have to pretend to fall over dead. But in other ways, it feels pretty real in there, the enemy soldiers dressed in peacekeepers' uniforms, the confusion of a smoke bomb. They even gas us. Johanna and I are the only ones who get our masks on in time. The rest of our squad gets knocked out for 10 minutes. And the supposedly harmless gas I took a few lungfuls of gives me a wicked headache for the rest of the day. Cressida and her crew tape Johanna and me on the firing range. I know Gale, Olive and Kashmir are being filmed as well. It's part of a new Propo series to show the rebels preparing for the capital invasion. They also show Peter and Katniss on one of their better days. He's brushing a stray strand of her out of her face, she's actually smiling. It goes into a feel-good Propo alongside footage of Annie and Finnick, bits from other districts. I learn Micah and Argentia are still alive and kicking, and even a bit of little kids playing in 13, Bane and Posey among them. In my rare moments of downtime, I anxiously watch the preparations for the invasions. See equipment and provisions readied, divisions assembled. You can tell when someone's received orders because they are given a very short haircut, the mark of a person going into battle. There is much talk of the opening offensive, which will be to secure the train tunnels that feed up into the capital. Just a few days before the first troops are to move out, York unexpectedly tells Johanna and me she's recommended us for the exam, and we're to report immediately. There are 4 parts, an obstacle course that assesses your physical condition, a written tactics exam, a test of weapons proficiency, and a simulated combat situation in the block. I consider failing on purpose but quickly throw that over and do well on the first 3. There's a backlog at the block. Some kind of technical bug they are working out. A group of us exchanges information. This much seems true. You go through alone. There's no predicting what situation you will be thrown into. One boy says, under his breath, that he's heard it's designed to target each individual's weaknesses. I can't think what they'd see as mine, not that it matters. I'm sure they'll go easy on me to make sure I pass. The situation is easy indeed, until there's an explosion. There's only static on my headset and I run to investigate. I almost throw up when I turn the corner, forcing myself to remember it's all fake. Civilian casualties. No matter that it isn't real, I run over to the children. They made them capital kids. Gave them wigs and everything. One of the boys is holding a small figurine from the game's merch. It's Glimmer. The kid, the prop, I try fruitlessly to remind myself, is still breathing. I grab for my medkit. Just then the line comes back alive. To the checkpoint, soldier. Now. So this is my perceived weakness. I ignore the voice and turn back to the child. When I leave the block, they congratulate me and stamp my hand with a squad number. I draw it back, perplexed. But I didn't follow orders. The soldier smiles, strained. There's more important things than orders. Bob smiles sadly and shakes his head when he sees me. Let's see it. Unsure now, I hold out my stamped hand. You're with me. Join your squad. He nods over at a group lining the wall. The Victors and Gale. Johanna is deathly pale and clutching onto Olive's hand so hard both their knuckles have turned white. There's 5 others I don't know. My squad. I get to work under Boggs. With my friends. At least I can trust them. We must be important, too, because we're in command, and it has nothing to do with a certain Mockingjay. Plutarch stands over a wide, flat panel in the center of the table. He's explaining something about the nature of what we will encounter in the capital. I'm thinking this is a terrible presentation, because even on tiptoe I can't see what's on the panel, until he hits a button. A holographic image of a block of the capital projects into the air. This, for example, is the area surrounding one of the peacekeepers' barracks. Not unimportant, but not the most crucial of targets, and yet look. Plutarch enters some sort of code on a keyboard, and lights begin to flash. They're in an assortment of colors and blink at different speeds. Each light is called a pod. It represents a different obstacle, the nature of which could be anything from a bomb to a band of mutts. Make no mistake, whatever it contains is designed to either trap or kill you. Some have been in place since the dark days, others developed over the years. To be honest, I created a fair number myself. This program, which one of our people absconded with when we left the capital, is our most recent information. They don't know we have it. But even so, it's likely that new pods have been activated in the last few months. This is what you will face. The room falls silent. Too many of us have been through the arena to ignore this. Kashmir steps forward, reaching into the hologram. And may the odds. Her voice is soft, but as Johanna and Olive join in, equally quietly, it has an eerie quality. Be ever in your favor. The remaining days go by in a whirl. After a brief workout each morning, my squad's on the shooting range full-time in training. We practice mostly with a gun, but they reserve an hour a day for specialty weapons, which means Gale uses his heavy militarized bow. Another axe like Olive's was made for Johanna. It has the same functions but is a sleek, simple black rather than the same extravagant design. Beat has designed a spear for Kashmir which has a lot of special features, but the most remarkable is that she can throw it, press a button on a metal cuff on her wrist, and return it to her hand without chasing it down. Sometimes we shoot at peacekeeper dummies to become familiar with the weaknesses in their protective gear. The chinks in the armor, so to speak. If you hit flesh, you're rewarded with a burst of fake blood. Our dummies are soaked in red. The other soldiers are rather nice, but even the youngest, sisters, who we call League 1 and League 2, are 10 years older than me. I feel somewhat out of place. I don't fully understand our status until the morning Plutarch joins us. Squad 451, you have been selected for a special mission, he begins. We have numerous sharpshooters, but rather a dearth of camera crews. Therefore, we've handpicked you to be what we call our star squad. You will be the on-screen faces of the invasion. Disappointment, shock, then anger run through the group. What you're saying is, we won't be in actual combat, snaps Kashmir. Gale looks almost as relieved as I feel, though. Madge has worked herself into quite the frenzy when she found out he'd be going to the capital and has been transferred back to Psych. You will be in combat, but perhaps not always on the front line. If one can even isolate a front line in this type of war, says Plutarch. None of us wants that. Johanna's remark is followed by a general rumble of assent, but I stay silent. We're going to fight. You're going to be as useful to the war effort as possible, Plutarch says. And it's been decided that you are of most value on television. Just look at the effect Primrose had running around in that Mockingjay